Andrew Bisco.
Sean Ham.
Billy Shedd.
Michael Strange.
Julie Webb.
And I am John Hunt. On March 16th, 2020, Governor Greg Abbott granted a request by Attorney General Ken Paxton to temporarily suspend a limited number of open meetings laws to the extent necessary to allow telephonic or video conference meetings in response to the coronavirus. In accordance of those suspended rules, we certify that the notice of this meeting was posted online for at least 72 hours prior to this emergency meeting. Although members of the board are not gathered in a central physical location, we do have a quorum in attendance at this meeting by video conference or telephone call. We're meeting by this Zoom video conferencing, which allows for two-way communication between the board. As we would at any in-person meeting, members of the public who have followed the instructions on meeting notice for registering to speak during the public comment portion will have their comments read in the comments portion of the posted agenda. All other meeting procedures will adhere to board adopted procedures to the extent practical. An audio recording of this meeting is being made and will be available to the public at a later date. We apologize in advance for any unforeseen difficulties and ask for your patience as we navigate these unprecedented conditions. Okay, so public comments.
Yes, we have one.
Okay, are you reading that?
It's not an agenda item.
It's a general public comment?
Do you want me to?
Yes, just go ahead.
It's not on a specific agenda item.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
this is Leslie Rives, 920. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. 929 North Little School Road, Kennedale, 76060. Her topic is the GPA grading policy. I would like to urge the school board to readdress not including second semester GPAs into overall GPA calculation, at least as far as it pertains to the top 10% of 9th through 11th grade. My daughter, Allie Murphy, as well as many others, could suffer extreme consequences by this omission. She has worked extremely hard to improve her GPA and possibly up her class rank, especially considering that the third 9 weeks was entirely completed before online classes began. If the school board and administration aren't comfortable with including the fourth 9 weeks, the third 9 weeks should be averaged in and constitute the second semester grades. I'm just reading it as it is. College admissions are extremely competitive these days, and any increase in GPA and or class rank is of the utmost importance to kids applying to competitive schools and for scholarship purposes. In the video by Dr. Vu, she states that the school district hopes to do no harm to the students. In the case of my daughter and many others like her, failing to average the second semester into her GPA will negatively affect her. She has worked extremely hard for her grades, and as number 2 in her class, the difference between her position and the number 1 spot could mean an entire year's worth of free college tuition at a public institution in Texas. She and many of her other classmates whom she has discussed this with, who are also in the top 10%, would like to be given the option for their grades to be averaged in. We would like the board to consider an opt-in policy for averaging in second semester grades and adjusting class rank. Please do not penalize the students who have worked incredibly hard this semester. Thank you in advance for your consideration of this matter.
Thank you for your public comments. Okay, that brings us down to the consent agenda. Has everyone reviewed the consent agenda?
Yes.
All items can be approved with one motion.
I make a motion to approve all items on the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I think that's everybody. That's approved.
Strange.
I said aye.
Okay. Well, they call me if I don't circle the names, so I'm making sure I got them all.
Okay. Do we want to skip down to the roofing section? Chad?
Yes, we can. Oh, we got Billy on right now.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Okay. So we have Billy Shedd from Wari Roofing Consultants with us. This is the group that we hired to do our consulting and create the specs. They have knocked it out in a pretty quick period of time. And so I'll kind of let Ms. Mode take over from that and let her explain where we are.
Okay, we're kind of just batting these around. An excellent job for us. I included all the specs in your board packets. He's here to answer any questions you may have. Does anybody want, I don't know enough about the roofing to talk intelligently about it, but Billy certainly can. Does anybody have any questions on the slope or anything that we're doing with that?
Chad, does that mean that we kind of abandoned the idea of pitching the roofs more? All the specs look like basically maintaining the current roofs in their current state.
That's what I was hoping that Billy could kind of walk us through kind of the specs on it. The slope is actually going to be raised, I believe, 9 inches on the CIA building, and I believe also on Delaney. Arthur, I don't know. That's one of the things we're going to have to discuss is if we want to add Arthur. We had them assess the roof, and his recommendation for that is that the old half of the building needs to have a new roof put on it, and the new roof may need some repairs on it. So, Billy, do you kind of want to go in through what you see on the scope and as far as the slope and the steepness of the roof and what the codes and everything say? I'll let you speak to that.
Okay. In reference to, let's start with the CIA building. Well, we noticed that roof is ponding in several areas where you have water almost about 2 inches deep in several areas. From what I noticed was that someone, I don't know when, actually dropped some what we call retrofit drains in areas that they thought that were too low. But there's no actual pattern to it to actually slope towards those drains and shed the water towards those drains. Someone just dropped them there without any type of idea. They just thought it was probably a good idea to try to drain the roof. So the idea was to add tapered insulation on all areas. And what Mr. G was speaking to was about, in some areas you'll get about 9 inches, but overall the roof will be sloped about 1/4 inch per foot. Now, the International Building Code, which Kennedale ISD has just adopted, it was the city of Kennedale has adopted the 2018 IBC, International Building Code, requires positive slope. We generally design roof systems to have 1/4 inch slope, which is positive drainage. So I had the idea to CIA building to eliminate those drains, cover them, dispose of all of the drains, the piping, the PVC equipment underneath inside the drop ceiling, and raise the slope so that it drains and slopes towards a new gutter system on all areas except for what I call area A. I don't know if you have it in front of you, but it's the only area that has an actual parapet wall around it. All of the other areas will get a gutter and downspout system on them to drain properly. What we also noticed was that, I know there's questions about possibly about why can't we overlay the system and so forth. Well, the problem with that is when we cut those actual roofs, there's water trapped within the system already. So we can't actually put a Band-Aid over it. We have to tear it down to the actual wood deck and review the deck and observe any damaged decking to replace that before the new installation is installed, in which we have to go with what the state mandates a 25 R25, which is about 5 inches of insulation before you install your actual roof system.
Billy, are you able to share your screen and kind of pull up some of the diagrams of the damage and stuff where you see it and what we're, and kind of show the areas that we're talking about?
Let me see if I can.
But John, to answer your question, the roofs will be sloped. They may not be sloped at the at a very pitched angle, but they will be more than what's required by code. And we should get the drainage off of the roofs the way we want to, instead of having it puddling on top of the roofs.
Well, that was really two questions. One is, we talked about the potential of putting, metal roof with a pitch, changing the way those buildings look externally with a metal roof. And I assume we've kind of looked at alternatives. That's number one. And the second, if we're going to pitch the roofs a little more of what we have, are we talking about substructure? We're actually raising the decking in a certain area, or are we doing it with a insulation material? So there's some softness to the roof. I mean, I couldn't tell from what we're looking at as to what the actual process was.
We're adding slope with insulation only, and that's actually going to be underneath an actual cover board, which is actually a gypsum board. So you'll have a pretty hard substrate that'll also help with in regards to hail underneath the finished roof, the finished membrane.
Yeah, because that's historically been the problem when they do an insulation type material. When you do have a large impact, you basically get a crater because that substrate does compress and it turns into a larger depression over time. That's why, if you flipped it, and I don't know what the process, I'm not a roofer and I shouldn't talk, but if you put it, like you said, a plywood sheet on top of the insulating slope, you have a little more protection from that. I just don't know what the process is today.
Yes, well, yeah, for more hail resistance, we're going to add a cover board, which is about a 1/2 inch, and it looks identical to actual sheetrock that you would install on walls, on vertical walls, but they have designed it to be installed on the roof, which will help with hail resistance. On the roof that you have now, there isn't one. There isn't a cover board. It's just really like a soft insulation, and most areas on a CIA building is actually an overlay. There's actually a built-up roof underneath where they added like a very thin ISO board underneath that, the TPO system, which is very thin. So, I mean, it's susceptible to hail and pretty much any damages. The things about those single ply systems is you really can't tell if it's been hail damaged until 2 or 3 years down the road, and which is actually too late to file a claim, because you see the damages on single ply systems. Once you take the system off, you look on the backside, then you see like a ring effect, like you would throw a rock into a pond and it would spread. You would see it on the backside of that. So to the naked eyes, such as a public adjuster who would come out and look at the roof, would say, oh, it's in good shape. We don't see any hail damage on a single ply roof, which, like I said, at some point you have a certain time frame to file a claim, but you would miss that on a single ply roof. Plus, as I said before, there is no actual hard substrate that'll go on top, which we've specified it on the drawings and specs for this project.
Okay.
Can you see my screen?
We can.
Okay, this is actually on the CIA building. We have some vertical cracks and seams in the brick, which I've included in our specs and drawings to actually assess these and also to address these, to actually seal these types of issues back up as well, along with the roof system. Let's see. This is the typical edge on some areas, which I plan to, if you can see my cursor, we plan to remove all of this, make sure that the wood is replaced if it's rotten or deteriorated, and install a new 2-piece counterflashing to look similar to this, whatever color that you want. We can ask the contractor to get you color samples to match whatever color you want to add a new metal around this. But in reference to this, I believe this is what I call the E building, which I think that we're discussing demolishing or not in contract. But this area, like I said, will have a gutter system around it anyway.
Hey, Billy, your pictures you're showing is all it's showing is all the pictures that you have on your screen. It's not showing each individual picture.
It's not?
No.
Okay, I'm looking at.
You may have to share again.
Yeah, you probably got a split screen. You got the wrong one.
Yeah, it's my first time trying to use this thing.
Doing better than I could do.
As I say, grab a teenager.
Yeah, I might grab one of my kids here. Let's see. Can you hold on 1 second? Let me go grab a teenager.
Hey, Billy, can you double click on that picture? Like if it was on my screen, I'd be able to double click and the picture would come up.
Let me get out
I don't
of
know
it.
if that'll help, but you might try.
Okay. What do you see now?
It didn't work.
Still same thing. Do you have a split screen? Do you see a larger version of this?
I'm looking at the larger version, actually.
Do you have an option to share the overall desktop rather than just one of your windows? I think it says, let's see.
Let's see. Okay, let me try this again. I'm looking at share screen at the bottom of the screen.
Uh-huh.
So that's what I would click, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think it'll ask you what you want to share, if I'm not mistaken.
What do you see now?
You.
You.
Oh,
I think it'll say like screen 1 or screen 2 if you have 2 monitors.
no. Let's see.
Something's happening here. Okay.
It's going back to the same thing.
We're back to the same one. Yeah.
Okay. I might have to get some help here. Just new share. So you're still not seeing it.
Okay.
Let's stop.
Can you just kind of take us through, like, I mean, if you can show us just what you're talking about, just kind of talk us through the process of what you went through as far as why this roof, and when we talked about picking the best roofs for what we have, why you feel like this is the best roof for what we need.
Well, one thing is, like I said, we don't specify TPO roof systems at all because we've seen them fail. And oftentimes within the first 3 to 4 years, oftentimes we have, especially without that board that I was talking about, the gypsum board. In our experience, we found that the modified bitumen roof systems or gravel surface roof systems actually are better systems, and more or less the warranty is much better because the manufacturers normally they tend to honor their warranty more or less when you have a built-up roof system as opposed to a single ply. We've noticed that manufacturers tend to slide out or get out of the warranty on single ply. We have all of these types of fine print that they have in their documents to get them out of the warranty. Some even go as far as if there's hail within a 1 mile radius, they can void your warranty. But we've noticed that more of these built-up roof systems actually, the manufacturers honor their warranties and whatnot. Actually, over at Grapevine Colleyville, I was able to do an assessment there, and they have the built-up roof systems as well. And they've honored their warranty with all of their leaks. They sent one guy out to go out and check out all the leaks and the warranties, even 12 and 13 years down the road that these roofs have been installed, and they've honored every leak to repair all of them that are their problem. So I just think it's a better system for the whole district, especially it's a major upgrade to what you have right now.
And the question about the metal roof, originally we thought about going with a metal roof just for durability and to pitch it and raise it more. Why do you feel like a metal roof is not what we need in these situations?
Well, because these roofs are so flat that you would have to actually install a wood and truss type wood frame and truss system, much like a house, in order to have the type of system, because a metal roof is somewhat like a shingle roof system on a home. You have to have a certain slope. So it has to be sloped, I believe around a 212 or 3 inches per foot slope. So it's got to have quite a bit of slope. So you have to have quite a bit of woodwork installed over the top of these roof systems. And then you would have to, before that, you would have to have an engineer come in and assess it to ensure that you can actually add that amount of weight to the existing roof systems without shoring up the existing trusses and wood framing that you have already. It may be too heavy for that. If it's over 5% anyway of an addition to the weight, then you'd have to have an engineer come in and reassess everything. If you take everything off that we have now and install this built-up roof system, it'll be a little less than what you have because you actually have 2 roof systems on there right now.
The engineering firm that we have contracted with has looked at all these design plans. Is that right, Mr. G? Don't hear you.
On mute.
Isn't that,
Wari Engineering is the
where
engineering.
engineering is?
They're the ones that we have contracted to create the specs and to look at what they recommend as our best roofing system. Originally, Robert Gabois is on with us also. He was the one who originally came in, and when we were talking about the metal roof system, said you may want to get somebody else out here to look at your Billy, now it's sharing. So
Okay.
but,
Yeah, user error. I got you.
okay, so anyway, he originally said you may want to rethink this because I think as far as the weight of the metal roof, it's not these wood, how compromised are these wood trusses? And that's where it kind of led us into bringing in a roofing engineer to sit there and design what we need for these types of buildings.
Okay, as you can see, like I was saying, you have some cracks on the vertical walls, which we plan to address also within the within our specs and our drawings to assess all of these vertical joints and cracks around the perimeter. This is a typical metal that's around the edges of the roof of all areas, which we also plan to replace all of this once the wood is actually inspected to ensure that it's not compromised as well. This is that area E I was talking about, which I think is, I believe is it pre-K section? Mo, is that right? Okay.
Yes, that's the pre-K section on the end towards the playground.
Yes. So
towards the hill up top playground. Yeah.
As you can see, it's quite a bit of ponding. The drain was dropped there, but it's not working properly either. These are just typical pictures. As you can see, these little spots and things in here are typical of, this is evidence of water sitting there for quite some time, so that the slope is very minimal. These types of pipe supports, we're doing away with the wood because they tend to, over time, just like any wood, they tend to deteriorate, and they no longer support the roof, or no longer support the pipes and conduit. So we're going to actually put what we call pipe rollers underneath these. Same thing. It's just a wall flashing. We're gonna, because typical roof systems for the 20-year warranty, you have to have a height of on walls at least 8 inches in this situation, we're gonna have a fully tapered system. So we're gonna be up around here. So we might have to we're gonna have to have the contractor take this off and move that counter flashing up the wall some. We have a detail for that. These are typical AC units or RTUs that the height from here to the roof is only about 7.5 inches, what I measured. So what's gonna happen here is, like I said, we have to have an 8-inch minimum in order to achieve or receive the 20-year warranty. So these units are gonna have to be moved, or they're gonna be disconnected and raised once the roof is completed to at least a minimum height of 8 inches. So that's going to be typical of all AC units and RTUs and rooftop equipment. I don't know what this is used for. We're going to have to remove that and install it. But is this operable right now? Is this functional?
Looks like an antenna.
At our tower.
Is it functional? Or can we remove it, or is it abandoned?
Brian, are you still on there? This, I believe, is our connection from Delaney that ties in the CIA building, the admin building, the Success Center, DEAP. We kind of have that daisy chained across. And I believe that is our tower to achieve that. Our plan is to remount that on the side with Brian's rewiring, but we will have to do a temporary drop.
I'm sorry that Eileen's right. That's not our equipment though. I honestly don't know what that is. It looks like it's we haven't installed anything on that building. I mean, I see coax cable going into it. That may be related to like dish to TV is what that looks like.
Okay, well we've addressed this.
WeatherNet services or whatever, the weather bugs or whatever. Do we ever have any
Possibly.
Okay, well, we've addressed this. If you want to put it back in place, to pick it up, install a new roof system underneath it, and to install it properly, so when it penetrates the roof, it'll be flashed properly so it doesn't leak. So we've addressed this. As you can see back behind it, there's a drain. There's a drain. We plan to eliminate that drain, as I said, and install taper that's going to come all the way out to the edge, and new gutter systems coming out there. Another area.
Just to give y'all some ideas where you're seeing those lighter, that is where maintenance has gone in and tried to patch just to mitigate the leaking until we can get a new roof.
Yeah, it's just a coating that they applied. I guess try to stop leaks temporarily. As you can see, there's somewhat of a elevation change here. We've already addressed it in our drawings. Once we add tapered, which is going to come out to the edge over here, is going to line up pretty much perfectly, so it all slopes towards this back wall. So it'll slope all the way to the edge over here and back to this side, so you'll have gutters pretty much all the way around this area. Things like this, which are abandoned, we plan to remove and install wood in place of it, because of course it's no longer being used. We don't want that being a possible place for intrusion of water. So we're going to just eliminate that all the way down to the deck and install wood to cover that hole. I believe you said that this is inoperable as well. This is abandoned. Okay. So I have this, I think I have this on our drawing already to eliminate that and install wood. Yeah, I think I have that already to eliminate that as well. Okay. This is, of course, these have to stay, so we're gonna get these flashed properly. They're gonna look pretty similar to this with liquid flashing. So they, the contractors know how to work around this. They work around them quite often. Wood blocking, we're gonna replace once again. This is this area that's closest to the main building. I guess 120 West Kennedale is closer to that. So this is the only area that we have with parapet walls. So this roof will actually be, it's already tapered or sloped this way, and it's going towards some scuppers in the walls over here. We're going to eliminate that drain. And I believe there's another one on this side we're going to eliminate as well. So the roof can drain properly towards this wall. As you can see that drain there. So plan on eliminating that one and that one. I think the other one's on the other side. That's the drainage point on the wall. I believe that's south, I believe.
Yes.
Okay. As you can see, that drain isn't even working properly. The water's on this side of it instead of going there. So that's why we plan on eliminating it. Just typical rooftop equipment. This actually, I showed Ms. Mo this. One of my guys actually walked across the roof, and his foot kind of fell into a hole. This was actually covered. And so I had him to cut it out. And we believe that the last roofer on this roof actually just covered this hole. It was just like a piece of insulation sitting in there. And we felt this in different areas. So when this roof is removed, we're gonna have the contractor to cover all of these holes with actual wood instead of being just an open hole there. Because your foot is, I mean, the hole is big enough for a foot to just go completely through the roof.
So how many roofs did we say were on top of the CIA building?
There's two. There's actual, but if you count the actual, this silver coating, it can actually be referenced as an actual another roof because it's actually recovered. They actually covered two roofs on this. So actually, if you really look at it, it has three roofs. It has the built-up roof with the modified bitumen, and it has insulation, then the TPO, then they coated this. So there's actually really three roofs on this.
And the plan is to strip it down to the decking and go all the way down and completely redo the decking where it needs to be done. And that's where it's compromised.
Yes, the decking, and only in areas where the decking is deteriorated or rotten, we plan to repair all of those and install a new roof system on top of that.
Okay. And can you kind of show the difference in the two halves of the CIA building, kind of like where the really bad parts are compared to the parts that are not so great, but then
On the CIA building?
Whole building, yes.
On the CIA building, pretty much they're all the same on pretty much all of them. Area E, which you plan to demolish anyway, it's by far the worst as it pertains to slope and drainage. I mean, the slope on that is very minimal, so it's holding a lot of water. But the other areas, they're holding water, but not as much as area E. But actually, when we cut those roof systems, we cut each roof system. Wish I had let me see if I can find an actual, let's see. I want to go back to.
One of the things that we were looking at, Billy, and of course you and I and Mr. G have already talked about this, but let the board know the difference. The pre-K wing is significantly more damaged.
Yes.
If you think about how the administration piece of the pie, if you want to call it, the plat of it, it kind of all runs down towards Delaney. All the, as you've seen, the roofs are not, or the drains on the roof are not working correctly.
Right.
All that water is sitting on that pre-K wing, and it's soaked. The insulation is soaked, the wood is soaked.
Yes.
That's where later on we've asked you if we can have permission to tear that down, because the cost to replace that roof is going to end up, because we are going to have to replace so much of the decking, will end up exceeding what it would cost us to tear it down. It would be easier to tear it down and use that space for something else versus trying to re-roof it.
Yeah, most of these areas here that you see where the water is there, I didn't want to cut that because there was really no way to patch it back properly without it leaking. But even areas that are close to there, we cut a hole in the roof back in this area closer towards the street. And it was actually, insulation was so saturated that I could squeeze it like a sponge, and water just came flowing out of it, out of the insulation. So there's water trapped in the system. But we also found that in this area as well, in all areas that we cut, we actually found wet insulation on the entire roof.
And these pictures were taken a week after the rain that we had?
Yes.
Yes. So that pre-K wing, you see how much water's standing on that pre-K wing?
Actually, on the pre-K wing, we go back there. Actually, ponding in the roofing world is considered if water is standing past 48 hours. This was actually a week after. So this water it's probably still there. Would probably still be there even if it hadn't rained for a few months. Let's see if I can go. This is the actual roof on the gymnasium, I believe. See, okay. Yeah, like I said, this roof was coated as well. It has the same amount of roofs. All of them have the same amount of roof systems on them. It's just rooftop equipment. We plan to bring a gutter around this roof too as well. We have to raise all these large units, which the contractor will have in their cost to raise the units. Gonna have to raise, this equipment is too low. As you can see, the curb is only maybe 2 or 3 inches.
And do we even know if that equipment's functioning there?
I don't know. That's something that I guess Kennedale ISD would have to tell me if it's not being.
I'm talking to Ms. Mode on that one, so.
I believe it is. That's part of the air conditioning units there on the gym. And both of those do currently work. The heat is separate. It's a heater on the inside. It's not part of the HVAC on the roof.
Okay, so they're separate. Okay. I don't know. Someone added some turbines up here for ventilation. I don't know if that's proper. We may just eliminate that and add some typical commercial style rooftop ventilation for it instead of these turbines.
Those are installed over the stage, the old stage.
Okay. It's just an overview of your roof areas. Go back. Okay.
And do you have this broken down cost-wise, what we're looking at for the CIA building in the sections?
For the most part, I believe. No, I think I had area E, which I call this area E. I had that broken down away from the rest of the roof systems.
Okay, and that's the pre-K wing, and just to roof that, what was that total?
Hold on 1 second. Get out my
Throwing
pen.
you on the spot here, sorry, Billy.
It's okay. That's okay.
$400,000.
I think I had that with just the roof. This area would be in the range of 173 to probably $200,000. Just to re-roof this and add the tapered insulation and add and lift all the units and whatnot. So I think just this area alone would be about $200,000.
Okay,
That wasn't because we don't know how much of the wood decking.
Right.
They anticipate, what was it, 2,000 square feet that has to be replaced, and it could be more.
That's what I put in the specs. I added that in the specs, that at least 2,000 square feet, the contractor should include that in their bid to repair or replace 2,000 square feet of wood decking, but I believe it may be much more here. So that would add to the unit cost. So say for instance, if it was 2,000 square feet that they replaced, that's already included in their number. But if they had to replace another 3,000 or 4,000, that would probably be in the range of $7 to $8 more per square foot. So you'd be looking at another 2,000 square feet times about $5 or like $7 or $8. You're looking at like almost 14, 15 more $1,000 at least. So plus,
Okay, so tell us, what was the number you said about to take down and replace just the pre-K, that kind of that first estimate number you gave us?
you mean the roof system here?
Uh-huh.
To take the roof down to the deck and analyze the deck, which doesn't include what we don't know, the unknowns, which is more wood decking that we anticipate will need to be replaced. I anticipate it being at least after repairs about $200,000. With more wood, with more wood repair, we're looking at probably another $15,000 to $20,000.
Okay, so 2,000 and up.
Yes, 200,000 and up. Plus, on this area, you're looking at to raising 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I believe 6 or 7 units at somewhere in the range of $1,500 to $1,700 a piece. So that'll add to the cost of raising these units as well.
Or even having to replace them, depending on age, you know.
If they're like this one, if you can see that one here, the door is gone. It may be there on the roof, but it may not be working.
The units that are on this building are the units that were placed on it in 1998 when they originally remodeled that building. It was a 4th grade wing at that time.
I know in this area, I went inside the building when it was raining, and there was a huge trash can that was full of water. So I know that this area here, I anticipate that whole area on that side, that the decking will need to be replaced. That doesn't even count this area here, which I cut and the insulation was saturated. And I believe that it's saturated in this area as well.
And looking at the level from the inside of saturation and what we've dealt with the rains and the flooding inside the building, I would say that, I think when we talked the other day, that I would predict that 75% of this roof's decking is compromised. And I don't even know about the rafters underneath it.
Right. Yeah, we definitely those have to be analyzed as well.
And that cost is not in there.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And this wood along this edge, I did notice that a lot of this wood underneath this metal, I could see some of it was deteriorated. So the wood along this edge would have to be replaced as well, more than likely, before we add new metal and a new gutter system on that.
Anybody know how old that building is? Just not the roof, just the building.
Just off the top of my head, I believe that building was built, and this is where some of the old school people, Leslie, I don't mean that, Leslie, but you can help me out here. I believe that the year built on this was 1968, but for insurance purposes, when we remodeled, they update it to the current renovation, and it's 1998 there. But I don't know if this was part of the original school that was built in the 50s. I believe the gym was, and part of the CIA building.
Yeah, I know the gym is original.
I know the windows on that building, they don't even open. They're sealed shut.
They're not low E windows, definitely. So you'd have to bring those back up to code, and they're single pane windows. And right now you have to have double pane with low E. So you have to replace every window and all of the wood around those to bring at least just that up. And also on this same area, as you can see, there's some soffit panels. All of that stuff is deteriorating. I believe that the wood underneath there is deteriorated as well. So that will have to be replaced.
All right, we ready to move to Delaney?
Yeah.
Okay. stop and share. Let me try to go find Delaney's pictures.
Delaney's doesn't have near the damaged, I mean, just needs a new roof. It's old, it's got leaks in it and stuff, but we don't anticipate the deck damage and stuff as we're finding in the CIA in the pre-K hall.
And I believe it has a metal deck on it. Is that right, Billy? Composed
That's
as opposed to the wood deck that's on the CIA building?
That's correct. It has a metal deck, but once again, on that roof system, it is, let's see, 1 second. I want to show you where we are. Okay, let's see if I can go back to share my screen. I want to show you where we are, Delaney. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, this is where we are. We're at 75%, which is basically complete. We're just doing a final review. So these are your roof areas. I have them all. I did the lettering on my own so I could identify all areas. So of course, A would be the gymnasium. We have B, area B, around this complete area. D and C. Now C and D are a little weird. They have actually what we call a phenolic foam over the top of the metal deck. Now, phenolic foam, if it gets any type of moisture in it, it deteriorates the deck at a high rate. So I have that in the specs to address possibly repairing any damaged decking once they open the roof up, because we believe that since phenolic foam has this chemical reaction to water that it deteriorates metal at a fast rate, that we might have some damage here. But also all of this has the same type of roof system mostly on all of them except for C and D, which the insulation on them is different than the other areas.
C and D is part of the old building, isn't it?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, C and D was the original part.
Yeah, so you built all the other sections around.
Came and built the side wing and then the back and all of that other stuff.
Okay. So.
But the gym was there. It was I mean.
Yeah.
C, I guess that's A and F.
A and F.
They were there. It's all this B and stuff was new.
B and E. E was, I think, the newest section, I believe, when I saw a set of drawings.
Yeah.
They basically wrapped around the old building.
Yeah, they kind of added around the edges.
And this used to be the front of the building, right? Where G?
Yep.
Yes. And where B is, it used to be a playground.
Okay.
That side, that B, the back side of B.
Over here?
No.
Oh, over here.
By the door.
Part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
A wasn't there.
Okay.
We just had D and C.
B1 and B2 have metal roofs on, and they're damaged.
Y'all didn't have a gym?
Mm-mm.
Okay. As long as I've been there, A's been there, but.
Yeah.
Billy, would you unify that roof when you do the new roof structure on there?
What's that? I'm sorry?
Would the roof still be thought of in sections like it is now after you do the re-roofing of it?
Well, this is for me. This is so we can identify the areas, and it makes it easier for me. So this is my lettering process. So I just broke it down so I could analyze each one of them. I can itemize the issues on each one of them and address all details. So this is what I did on my own for me.
I got you. I'm just thinking in terms of grading and watershed.
You mean for the drainage? Actually, this roof system, what I found is that I cut it in different areas. Say, for instance, I cut it. These are the low points where you see these are drains. These are the low points. And these are the high points of the roof because it drains this way. So I cut it in different areas, the low point and high point, because we don't have any as-built drawings for me to actually reference to see if there's actual structural slope in the deck. So once I cut it, it let me know that there's actually structural slope in the deck. So all we'll need instead of a fully tapered system is insulation in between the drains. So once the water comes from the high point to the low, it'll go directly towards each one of these drains in this fashion. So we don't have to add completely tapered system like we do on the CIA building.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
It actually has pretty good slope. I'll go to the picture shortly, but we don't really have a lot of what you see, like you saw in the CIA building. You saw a lot of ponding and stains on the roof that are evident they're indicative of ponding. You don't see that on these areas, so it has good slope. However, when I cut each roof area, so I can, like I said, analyze each area. So I cut area B, C, D. I cut each one of them, and I found that the insulation was wet on most of these as well. So there's water trapped in between the system. And it has in the top layer of this roof system is a TPO 40 mil. It's a very thin system. And also underneath it, it doesn't have a hard board. It has a thin layer. It has a 2 7/8 inch ISO insulation underneath it. And some of these areas, as like C and D, C, D, F, and A actually have more than one roof on them. Let's see. I do have that.
And those old roofs are gonna have to come off, right?
Yes, because we have water trapped in between the system right now. So we don't want to overlay anything. So we want to analyze the metal deck to ensure that there are no holes or rusted decking that we're installing a roof system over. So this is what your set of drawings will look like. We'll have, I think this set is about 14 pages. We'll have the general notes, which will tell you what each area has. And this side is the new roof system that we're proposing that should be installed. Go down, we have a site plan, overall roof plan, demolition plan. Then we start enlarging the areas and start showing partials so you can get a better view of each area. Then we get into our details. So we have a detail for every issue or every area that we have on the roof, as far as the walls, coping cap changes and elevation changes, wall flashings and wall details, expansion joints. So we've identified every issue and everything on your roof. So we have a detail for everything that happens on the roof. And these are what I was talking about. You remember those wood blocking that you saw on the roof of CIA building? We plan to eliminate that and install some of these underneath the pipes instead of that wood blocking. Okay. So do you want to see the pictures on 180 on Delaney?
Anybody feel like you need to see the pictures on it, or do we want to move to Arthur?
Let's go to Arthur.
That's good.
Okay. Okay, so Arthur, of course, we haven't started design on that or anything, but we did do an assessment. Let me go back and find that.
It was also included in the board book.
Can you see Arthur?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, let's see if I have. Okay, this is what I call area A. I took a picture of this. Let's go back. This is this little canopy, and there are two. There's another one to the right. And as you can see, it's starting to deteriorate and possibly cave in at some point. So these will need to be addressed at some point. That's the other one. These are the vertical joints in the stone and the wall panels that were included in the specs to actually cut the existing ceiling out, grind this out, clean it thoroughly, and install new backer rod and sealing in these vertical joints. Okay, this is the typical roof system. This is the roof system on the area A. It's we didn't cut it or anything because we haven't moved forward with design. So we just did a visual survey to let you see the roof system and what kind of condition it's in. It's in poor condition. I don't know how long ago, but I can tell someone's been along this, I believe, south wall. There have been some repairs. As you can see, we have a lot of broken conduit. I'm not sure if the actual units, if all of them are operable or anything, but you have a lot of broken conduit. So some of this stuff may not be working anymore. AC units, I think that's the electrical conduit. Okay, this is, we're moving over to what I call, it's a small roof, which I call area D. This is a different type of roof system than area A. This is actually a TPO roof system, single ply. And as you can see, it's holding quite a bit of water. It was never sloped properly. It should be sloped towards, I believe, this end, because I believe there's a gutter or some sort on that end. So we had that included to replace, our thoughts are to replace this roof and add tapered insulation so it slopes properly and water doesn't sit on the roof anymore. This is actually the next area C. We found it to be in fair condition. We believe that, sorry.
Hey, Billy, where it's puddling there in that, it looks like a swimming pool. Can you talk about the quality of the
Here?
The vinyl or whatever it was that they used? And I think it was on the CIA building as well. And
yes, this is, I don't know what millage this is, but it's the TPO as well. And because we didn't cut it, we don't know exactly what's underneath. But from walking on it, I could kind of tell that it doesn't have the hardboard. So typically on TPOs, what happens is, as a matter of fact, I was in Joshua today with a contractor, Joshua, Texas, and we were talking about ponding water on TPO roof system. That it's typical, it's pretty bad for a TPO roof system because eventually this water will begin to eat away at the existing roof system here, as opposed to other roof systems. It's not, ponding isn't good for any roof system, but this, with the water on these types of roof systems, tends to eat away at this roof system faster than it does other roof systems. So it makes like a red algae, and it starts to deteriorate the roof at a faster process. We found that this area C, I believe, we found it to be in fair condition, that we didn't have to replace this, that it might need some minor repairs, but we didn't have to replace it. But if you had in the budget to replace it, we would suggest to go ahead and replace it with the same type of roof system that we're doing for the CIA building, as well as Delaney. This is that area, I believe, at the entrance. See the same thing happening where you have ponding water deteriorating the roof there and water just sitting there. So we propose to replace this roof as well. See the same, another view. The water isn't getting to this drain or this overflow scupper. It's not getting to this at all. It's staying right in this area. Of course, wood blocking, I showed you those pipe rollers we plan to replace. This is the newer section, which I call area D, I believe. But we found that there have been some repairs on this. I've been told that there are a couple leaks on this. The problem with this area, which I found, was that behind these units, okay, trying to think, okay, this back wall, the roof slopes this way because you have drains and scuppers for the roof. The deck slopes this way, so water automatically goes that way. However, on the back side of these units, go to that. You have a lot of debris on the roof as well and corners. Okay, this is a good picture. The roof slopes this way. Normally, you should have a cricket. Wish I could draw it in there for you. Let me see if I can. Yeah, I can't draw it in there, but normally you would have a cricket. What they call a cricket would be insulation that would deter the water to this side or that side. Right now, the water just sits behind this unit and it does it for all units. Okay. And the same thing for all units on this roof, that they don't have a cricket to shed the water off of this area. Water just sits there for, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 days with blocking. We actually found that this pipe was actually broken. So I'm thinking that there is a leak there, so that needs to be addressed. Someone just tried to repair that temporarily, and that's on the same area. But I did have a budget in there to repair the roof as well, which I feel that if you re-roof those other areas that I suggested, then we can get the contractor to address any issues that we have on this roof, to include in their bid to repair any damages or any issues on this roof. At this moment, I don't feel like we need to replace this because I believe that we have, at the moment, at least 5 or 6 years worth of life in it. And if you were to do any more repairs to this, such as things like this, you could extend the life for another 3 or 4 years to buy you some time to replace this roof later on down the road. And this is one of the bad areas, which I call area E, I believe. As you can see, it's quite a bit of ponding and the water's not getting, I believe there's a gutter along this side here, and the water, as you can see, is not even getting there. And this ladder is coming out of the wall, so I think I have that in my specs and drawings to reattach this ladder because it was pretty loose. The water's just sitting in that like a pool. These are little small areas that need to be re-roofed, just small little sections. This is what I call area F. I think it's at the main entrance building, I believe. So this roof, as you can see, this is a modified bitumen roof system. And it's, you know what, this is a good example of why I wanted to design the roof systems at the CIA building at Delaney for this, because this roof system is probably around 20 to 25 years old. And I don't know how many leaks you have on it, but it's been holding up quite well. It's hail damaged, wind damaged, but it's still in place. You don't see any openings along these seams. This is normally where you see the roof starting to come apart at the seams, but the seams are still sealed. But the problem that's happening here is there's granule loss. So the roof no longer is protected against the UV rays and the water and the wind. It's pretty exposed, but as you can see, it's still in place. That's the reason why I wanted to design the roof systems for this, because as you can see, it's been standing, it's exceeded its life expectancy.
Okay, so talking about life expectancy, what are we looking at with the proposed roof system that you're looking at on these buildings?
If we replace them, we're looking at 20 more years.
And how does that compare to a metal roof?
You can still get a warranty with a 20-year roof, but as I stated before, as you can see, these roofs have minimal slope. And to install a metal roof over the top of this, you would have to install rafters, much like you see in a house in the attic. You'd have to install rafters and trusses and framing. You'd have to go all across this. You'd have to lift all of these units up, or either bring the roof up high enough to be installed over those units in order to install a metal roof. And then at that point, it's going to be a nightmare for a mechanical contractor to access these. They're going to have to walk underneath the metal roof to service any of these units. So you have quite a few issues that are going to be involved with installing a sloped roof on these for a metal roof.
Billy, could you talk about the gym roofs and the music room roof so we can kind of wrap this up with
Okay.
time-wise, we're eating a lot of time.
Okay. All right. Let's go there. Okay. This is, I guess, the music room.
It was the original gym.
Okay.
Now it's a music gym.
Okay. This is, as you can see, this roof system, it's been here for quite some time. The idea is to replace all these little small dots you see, the fasteners, replace those because they normally come with the neoprene washer, and over time that neoprene washer has deteriorated, which is allowing this roof to leak in several areas. So we plan to replace all of these fasteners. And as you can see, there's a fastener, it's rusted. Someone has tried to repair them, okay? And these actual skylights, there's 6 of them that we plan to take these out since they're not being utilized or they're not necessary anymore. Plan to take all of these panels up because most of these are damaged as well, and install new panels and coat the entire roof system. As you can see, these panels are damaged, and the skylights, you can see the actual fibers in the panels. So they need to be taken up. They're very brittle. And the gutter is probably going to have to be replaced. It's damaged and broken.
And this is the original roof that was put on this building when it was built. And I don't recall off the top of my head if it was 1976 or 1978. So it's the same roof that has always been there.
And we'll go to the last one, to the large gym. As you can see, there's been quite a few repairs. Because this roof is already green in color, I don't feel that we need to coat this roof. I just feel like it just needs some care to it. It needs some of these screws need to be replaced. We need to address some of these laps that are probably leaking. And I know this roof is leaking because someone has tried to repair it along the seam. So all of this stuff needs to be cleaned away, and new sealant and new tape needs to be installed to stop the leaks in these areas. As you can see, someone tried to coat it for repairs. And I'll fast forward to Y, just the slope of the roof. You can see there's more repairs. The insulation is falling inside because it's leaking. It's falling inside in various areas. So if we are to get the contractor to address all these issues on this roof, we should be able to reinstall new insulation, because I think this insulation is pretty much gone, but a lot of it's still in place. We'll be able to install new insulation there. And of course, the vertical joints around the entire school, plan to address those. They're all open. That's the end of my pictures for Arthur.
Is that where the water's coming in at the front of the building? The
Possibly.
Gaps?
Possibly, yes, possibly. Quite possibly. Because this is actually these actually what you call, I think, believe tilt wall panels, and they come together, and this actually is the barrier which stops water from infiltrating the building at these joints where the panels come together. So they're all open. So this will be addressed along with the roof system.
Is that original to the walls, the caulk that's in there now?
Believe so.
Yes. Since Fab Creek put it in.
Okay. So a roofing contractor, he'll include this in his bid as well if you decide to re-roof this school to address this as well. So that'll be included in their bid as well. And I do have this, and I will have this on the drawings to address this as well, so they shouldn't miss that.
Okay, do you have any questions for Billy?
I don't have questions about cost when we get there.
So we're saying not, you're suggesting not the metal roof, correct?
No, yeah, not the metal roof. It's going to be too involved. Like I said, once again, if you look in your attic of your house, you'll see trusses and rafters. We'd have to install that before you can install a roof system. And of course, that's going to add to the weight factor, which we have to get a professional engineer involved in calculating the weight factor and whatnot in order to do that. Plus, like I said, you have rooftop units. Those are going to either be covered or you're going to have to lift those up above that and actually add supports for that to sit on, or you're going to have an AC maintenance person to actually stoop down underneath there to address, to service all those units. It'll be a nightmare.
Thank you.
When we originally were talking, we were looking at doing the CIA building and we were looking at Delaney. We now asked Billy to look at our other priority roof, which was Arthur. And if we add this, we'd be adding that to the scope of work. So that is what we're asking, that if you want to take action on, we would have to have you take action on that tonight. But before you take action, I didn't know if you wanted to go into the other, if you don't have any other questions for Billy, then we may move into the E, which would be considering options for the pre-K wing, which would be bringing in Robert to speak about that before we take action on anything.
Yeah, let's look at the new pre-K wing first. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
All right. And I'll introduce Robert Gabois. He is with Owner Builders Resource. He is our civil engineer that we have consulted with to help us look at facilities and options for facilities.
Good evening, board members. Mr. G, we have been working over the last week or so, crunching a lot of different numbers. And so what I want to do as briefly as I can is walk you through the process because we started with a directive to address your challenges with pre-K, and it led us down the path to a few other options. So I'm going to walk you through all of them, show you some numbers. Hopefully you won't cut off my video and mic while we're doing this, but we're going to share as much data with you as we can. This is live, so I can change it and play with some things. So I will share my screen with you, hopefully as smoothly as possible. So you guys should be looking at my summary spreadsheet.
Yes.
Clear as mud. So the initial visit that I made quite a while back, visiting with Ms. Mode and Mr. G, was to look at renovation of the pre-K wing. That was also in the context of the roofing challenge and the decision to consider an alternative with a sloped metal roof. Crawling around and looking up on the superstructure, I realized it's mostly timber and a lot of it's in bad shape. A lot of these support beams are sagging, one due to age, two due to the water infiltration, and likely need to be replaced, as well as the deck. And I was not comfortable that the structure could actually support the system required for a metal roof. I also made a comment to Mr. G and Ms. Mo that I felt like renovation of this space might not be the best cost benefit for the district, because the classrooms in that wing, even though I think some comments from teachers were that the rooms were nicely sized, they liked the restrooms, they're actually almost 300 feet shy of what they should be for a pre-K classroom. So initially I said the best thing you could do with this space is just tear it down, but having worked with Mr. G, I realized how frugal he is, and he wants to try to provide the best option for the least amount of money. We actually went back and looked at renovation of that pre-K wing, and I'll share that with you here. This is the area that we're talking about right here, renovating. We did our takeoff. We did an analysis of the different finishes and such, and we came up with a price of about $1.25 million to renovate that space to make it inhabitable, is a good word. You do have a lot of water coming in there. I've included in this price some pretty aggressive estimates for roofing. I know your consultant had a price in there. I added just a wee bit to it because I do believe a lot of the superstructure is going to have to be replaced, as well as the decking. I've also included in here HVAC replacement. This essentially cleans the building up, dries it in, replaces the old windows, makes the building envelope more energy efficient, and provides an environment for your pre-K program. The downside is it's almost 1.25 million into a building that does not meet even pre-2004 standards, let alone 2020 standards. And I know if you're looking at a 21st century learning model and looking at more collaboration and interaction of the classes and that type of thing, you're basically dressing up a 50, 60-year-old building that doesn't meet the guidelines for pre-K classrooms. So that led us down the path of considering a new pre-K wing. Spending time on the site, driving around, we see several options here, and I've created some images here in purple that show possibilities. One is putting it exactly where it's at. Two is putting it over here more contiguous with Delaney. The concern that I see long-term is access to dining areas, gymnasiums, and office space, and basically keeping those students as close to or contiguous with an existing campus as possible. That location there really intrigued me. It obviously does take some parking, but I'll address that just a little bit. One of the other options we discussed was putting it up here on the hill. It's certainly a possibility, but as you know, you have a pretty sharp elevation change from the field down to the parking area. So ADA access, student drop-off, pickup, and all that would be a bit of a challenge to deal with. But for 6 classrooms, brand new, tax, title, and license, we're looking at about 2.5 million to replace the 6 classrooms that you have right now in the pre-K. And I'm not even sure 6 long-term is a viable option. So as a facility planner, I feel a responsibility and I kind of enjoy getting down into the weeds. And so we went back and we looked at and are currently evaluating your enrollment and utilization of Delaney, Patterson, and Arthur in terms of available spaces, capacities, and where we might find some room. Now, preliminarily, it appears to me you have room within your existing campuses to bring pre-K on board. Now, it's in Delaney right now. Delaney still has a little bit of breathing room, but if you're going to go to a full day program, you're literally going to have to double the number of your classrooms that you have. And so what we're doing right now is an analysis across the board for all of your grades and all of your campuses through 8th grade to see if we might find a responsible utilization of facilities that is also responsive to your demographics and how your community is laid out, because we don't want to create a scenario with multiple elementaries and you have some, for lack of a better term, some haves and some have-nots. But we also want to be mindful of instruction and vertical alignment and taking every advantage we can to bolster that instructional environment for the kids. So that's a lot of gibberish to say it's not all about the sticks and bricks. We want to make sure we're making the best long-term decision for Kennedale ISD kids. But having said that, it sort of led us away from renovating the existing pre-K wing, because it's a lot of money put into a building that doesn't meet the standards. It also, we shifted away from a new pre-K wing because I'm not convinced we can't adequately, based on your enrollment, we can't adequately serve those students in existing campuses. Now, whether we split those or we decide we're going to have a pre-K component to a single campus, I'm still playing with those numbers, and I'm kind of excited about bringing something back to you. But I don't think putting money into the pre-K wing and building a new pre-K wing are responsible right now, given some of the other priorities, which leads me to the next box here on the summary page. To demolish the pre-K wing, and again, I'm being fairly conservative here because I know we've got the A word to deal with. We also have to be responsive to the fact that when we take it down, we're going to have some exposed corridors and exposed structures. And so I put money in there to address those finishes and address those access points that we consider. If we do that, we create an opportunity to turn that into parking. So I'm going to shift to a tab here. If we take the pre-K wing down, we open up a large area here to support parking in and around that campus. I know it's a challenge and I know it's off screen, but if you guys have driven through that circle drive around the side of the campus, it's pretty tight. Thought I was going to get a flat the other day with those nifty little things you have in the middle that I guess hold up flags or barriers. But the other thing, we also looked at addressing the drainage issue that you have within the playscape at Delaney. To use an engineering term, when you get a toad strangler and it comes through there, it washes out a lot of the mulch, comes out on the parking area, and it's a big mess. So we looked at the possibility of paving over that and really creating a lot of parking within that campus. The initial thought was to take this playscape here and set it somewhere over here within the new area created with the demolition of the pre-K. But knowing your, I guess, circulation challenges on that campus, when we paved this, we would create a great opportunity for a drive-through here and just really reassessing how students are dropped off, picked up, both by their parents and with the buses. And so now we've divided the students with basically a drive. And I wasn't particularly comfortable with that. And Ms. Mode and I think at the same time came up with the idea, if we're going to tear everything up, why not bring this playground over here contiguous with the structure? It's on the downhill side of the drainage. So we've really done I think can do a good job of consolidating, collecting, and managing the drainage such that it doesn't flow right through your playground areas. So those scenarios led to these estimates, which were demolition of the pre-K wing, parking in that area, and then moving down here to parking at Delaney and then replacing those playscapes. Now, let's go back to the CIA pre-K gym area. I know in my initial conversations with Ms. Mode and Mr. G were, if we're going to take pre-K down, it would be great maybe take the gym down and really open that campus up. But the reality is, and your roofing consultant might chime in here, that gym's not in horrible shape as a structure. It's still a solid asset. One thing the district is lacking that came up through our conversation is a central warehouse facility, a place to bulk purchase paper products, toilet products, cleaners, janitorial supplies, the list goes on. Right now, you're piecemealing it and trying to distribute it to the campuses. And you could really consolidate and frankly, I think better control your inventory if you had a centralized location to purchase, collect, store, and then distribute those supplies. So the thought was, is your existing gym could be an awesome location for a central warehouse. You've got an area right in here where it would be easy to bring in both bobtails and large trucks to drop materials off for storage and support your district. With this parking area here, we could also create an access point on this side. So I just looked at it in terms of not being too hasty about taking an asset offline. I'm totally comfortable with the pre-K wing because it's no longer educationally adequate, and it's going to cost a lot of money to support any function. But the gymnasium, there's some real possibilities to taking this space, demolishing the old dressing rooms over here, but providing a central warehouse facility for a little over $300,000. Now, this estimate here does not include the roofing because I know that's part of your claim, and you guys have, I think, set some money aside for that. And it doesn't include air conditioning, and I know that's probably making Ms. Mode squirm just a little because they are old units. But I wanted to kind of give you a quick option that would allow you to exploit that facility as is, and then perhaps put capital dollars into the HVAC units when those things give up on you down the road. But I think we've solved a couple problems there for not too much money. And then finally, we looked at a reconfiguration of really the whole CIA building, if you will. Right now, I think your maintenance folks did a pretty good job of going in there and dividing those spaces up. But if you've been through there and actually maybe grab your cup of coffee in the morning and hit a light switch, you realize you're turning on lights in 3 or 4 different offices. And some offices have air conditioning supply, some offices don't. Some offices have a supply but no return. Your guys tried to make do with what they had. And I think to go in and create the optimal utilization of that facility to support, I think, what is a very important component of your student community, and so those kids that are in need, modifying this facility to support those functions is a short and long-term practical solution. But to do that, I think you need to do it in a little more structured manner. So what we looked at doing was addressing all of this area with renovations to support a design that Dr. Drew worked on. But more importantly, you'll notice this area shaded here in blue. Our objective is to create a new entry to your administrative campus. Right now, you don't have ADA access into your main entry into your administration building. You don't really have ADA access compliant into your CIA facility. And the
school board meeting online. You got all the people in the school board.
Between those two buildings is a huge challenge. So the thought was, right now, folks might come in either door. There's really no defined entry for your administrative support structure. And so we thought of creating a new entry there, reception area, and providing within a conditioned space appropriate access to what basically is about 3 feet of difference between the two structures. It also would address the drainage that comes down the hill and flows through the area where everybody's trying to access the CIA building. So we've got 2 components to this. We've got the addition, which provides a new central administration entry reception area with controlled access from that point to either administrative areas and or the CIA and the community support functions that you have there. And then you've got renovation of the space, which is moving a lot of walls, adding some doors, moving doors, addressing your HVAC, so on and so forth. In this estimate as well, I did not include the roofing because that's part of the claim that you guys are considering. But I wanted to provide all of those options, I guess, in the context of a lot of evaluation that's been done over the last couple of weeks for y'all to chew on a little bit, think about. I'm going to share this information with Mr. G and Ms. Mode, and he can pass that back to you guys. I apologize for not getting it all to you in advance, but we were literally working on it up until about lunchtime today. But there's still some work to be done. I think we've comfortably, unless you guys have some input or information we didn't consider, I think we're comfortably steering away from a new pre-K and or renovating that pre-K and looking to put those kids back into your elementary campuses. But the rest of those priorities are definitely something you guys need to chew on and think about. Happy to answer any questions.
How big is that playground space?
It's exactly the same size as what exists right now. I accounted for 2 playscapes that were covered with appropriate ground cover.
Could it go any bigger? Because that's a little playground for that many kids.
Well, that's a great point.
Well, I mean, while we're doing it, I just didn't know, could you make that?
I don't know that we can get a kickball field out of it or anything like that. But we could situate it. The short answer is yes. If we took the entire area that exists right now, there's a possibility we could shift that. And if we did a ground cover, say like a turf product, we could rotate those playscapes and gain a little more area and play with that a little bit.
I just don't think we can make that playground area any smaller, even if it's not all covered. But I mean, that's tight out there.
So if you took your playscape, it's dimensioned about like that. And wherever this goes is, we would do that. So if you had your playscape set up sort of like this, and then you had all of this as green space, I think we could maybe even serve those kids better than it does right now. Because right now it's sort of plopped right in the middle of everything.
Yes.
So yeah, we can certainly look at that. Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to try, if at all possible, to keep it on this side of the drive or this parking, not move it over here. The temptation might be to create this into a green space, but then you still have that crosswalk issue. But we can certainly look at that.
Anybody
Could
else have
you-
questions? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, could you carry it out, where those one row of cars are, right there by that walk space? No, over here. No, over to the left.
Oh, here.
No, back. Okay, where? Yeah, right there, right there. Like,
Okay.
could you kind of like enclose that area right there where you added green space there? I mean, I know we're in the weeds, and that's
Yeah,
okay. We don't
That's
have
where the
to,
drain
but
is.
I just,
That's what makes
the
it fun.
teachers are gonna holler if we make that small, any smaller, because it's small now. That's why they go up to the field.
Well, here's the one
So-
thing we're trying to avoid. Let me see if I can help you out here.
But if you have that other parking over there, then you might not need that part. You could take that parking away.
If you can see this right about, where'd it go? Sorry. Right there is it's a storm. That's where all the water is going. So I'm trying to get out of this drainage swell here, and I believe there's a break right in here. I want to be on this side of it. So
There's
let's
also
play-
substantial drain on the other side too.
There
further
is.
up. And that's the one that stinks so terribly when we get a nice rain.
Yeah.
There's
Well-
a drain to the north there.
This way.
Yeah, it's located just past the canopy and toward the building, right there.
Right in here.
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's a great drain. I mean, literally, it's a great drain. A kid could fall through if he's small enough.
Oh, Lordy. Okay. let us play with it.
For clarification,
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, we can,
for what you, just to get clarification on what you're asking, basically, I think what Robert's putting there is just the play structures in the red box. And you're worried that we don't have enough ground around there. You want to move that whole square footage over to the side. Is that what you're saying?
I would say you do not want to make that whole area any smaller.
Okay.
I think there will be, I mean, I've been out there and it's a lot of kids and, I mean, yeah, he's just talking about that one little area and they need room to run and play. And that's why we take them up to that field a lot, or I assume that's what they still do. That's what we used to do. But,
They still do.
it's just I just don't think there's any way we could just have that playscape air spot. I mean, I think we've got to have some green space, or we couldn't tell the teachers we're making it even smaller.
Do all grades use these two playscapes?
Yes.
Yes, 1 through
K through 4, and then if
K
you
through 4.
add pre-K, so you've got 4th graders who are a lot bigger,
Mhm.
and so, and like you said, it's right in the middle, and so it definitely hinders the space. But I just don't think you could get away with making any of that area any smaller.
Well, one thing
Now
we
we
did.
may, if y'all, it's the problem is crossing that road right there, trying to get up to that field.
Mhm. Let me play with those options. One thing I haven't dug into a lot is how to possibly salvage this and repurpose, or not salvage, but make this work basically with the drainage elements that you have. And with the mulch, it doesn't work at all. But it could almost be cheaper than moving everything with this additional parking, consider extending this area out and providing a larger turfed area for those kids to play with, as long as we could deal with the drainage. So let me play with some of those scenarios.
Sure, thank you.
Good questions. Anything else?
So your recommendation is not to renovate and not to do the new pre-K, but demolish the old, what CIA or whatever piece of that building is, and put a building there?
The old CIA has so many instructional and I think community support programs associated with it that right now the building is not ADA accessible. It's not laid out very efficiently. Now, in the scheme of life, we all have to set our priorities. Obviously, instruction to the kids is very important. You guys have technology initiatives going on. You've got a lot of things to tackle. And part of our strategy is to take all these things and break them apart to give you guys a menu of options to consider. But as part of the work we've done over the last couple of weeks, that CIA initiative kind of floated to the surface as we've got parents that come into the facility at this location right here with all types of personal and social and economic and whatever issues. Your administrators and everybody are in this area. And so you have other support areas back here that some of those folks are trying to get to. And so you have circulation with folks looking for services that come through unnecessary parts of the building and perhaps even inappropriate parts. And what we were trying to do was create a centralized secure entry where folks can be identified, badged, whatever, but then sent to the appropriate location. And we address the ADA accessibility for many of the folks you have come to that facility. It was really sort of a domino. I mean, it led to realigning walls and maybe relocating some offices and bringing some of those community programs up closer to the front so they have direct access once they come into the administration area, and moving your administration more to the back so that, one, they have an escape route. I'm kidding. but just better utilization of the facility. So, but yes, sir, and answer your question, the pre-K wing, I'm confident with the enrollment that you have now and have had historically, that you can roll those kids into your existing elementary campuses. And frankly, I think that's a better home for them.
I have a question on the ADA compliancy for the CIA. What are we looking at price-wise? I don't have my spreadsheet pulled up, but if we just made that ADA compliant and weren't putting a lot of fluff into putting everybody's office where they want it and changing some stuff around like that.
Well, this number here for the new addition would probably be, you're looking at something on the order of, I would say, $100,000 to $150,000 just to clean that challenge up in the middle.
Okay.
There's nothing about any of that that's accessible. We'd have to also have most of this sidewalk along the front of your campus here is not compliant. You have steps and changes in grade and slope that create challenges. You also have issues here, and then you've got also have egress issues in the back. So there's just a combination of things that you're still looking at. Again, this is just the access points we're talking about. We're not talking about the restrooms. You have door hardware issues. You have threshold issues on some of the restroom locations. I was telling Mr. G in Miss Mode, there's things you can do under the auspices of, maintenance, if you will. But once you start moving things around, then now you're talking about submittal to TDLR for review, for accessibility review. You're talking about submitting it to the city that's operating, that is driving a lot of the design criteria for your roofs as well. The codes that they've adopted are going to require you to let the dominoes fall. And that's what we tried to present in as pragmatic way as we can. You can look at the numbers, moving the walls and things like that. Yes, it's substantial, but reassessing your thermostats, your light switches, your ductwork, your diffusers, your returns, so on and so forth. It's just all part of fixing something that, it's just been there a while, and your guys did a good job of trying to clean it up, but it's functionally, I think the programs have grown as well, and which is a good thing. But you can take a piecemeal approach to addressing one thing at a time. But as I told Mr. G and Ms. Mode today, all it takes is one person to come into that building and file a complaint with the Office of Compliance. And they send an inspector out, they walk it, and they present you with an administrative penalty. It can be as much as $10,000 a day before until such time as you're compliant. Now, if you have a plan in place, they'll give you some leeway. We went through this in Lockhart. None of their different subject, but none of their football bleachers were ADA accessible. And they were under a $10,000 a day administrative penalty. And we were able to show them their facility master plan that identified when we were going to address that. And so they backed off, but they were watching closely. And so it just takes one complaint. There is no grandfathering in or anything like that. They just gave school districts a bit of a reprieve because they knew it was an unfunded mandate. So,
Robert, can you scroll back up to the
Probably
picture?
now that we have it on recording, we're going to have that complaint. But one other thing about that is, are you saying that that would be like a central entrance with because I know right now going in the administration, we have a secretary, and when you go in the CIA, we have a secretary, or I don't know if that's the right term, but we have someone there greeting them. So that would put that one entrance for both buildings, and then that would be one area where they'd either direct them to the right or direct them to the left.
Correct.
Yeah, I'm going to speak up here. By having this, if you see, I don't have the cursor, but that sidewalk leading up to that blue thing right there, that is all level. And so that is on one level right there. Now, when you get inside this would be the reception area as you walk into this blue area. And then what you do to affect that grade from the building on the right, which is the admin building, down to the CIA building, that would be adjusted with inside this building to sit there and accommodate people to where they can facilitate both or access both buildings. And
I
now you
do
go
think
to the reception
putting
area.
that together would be good and that would make one person right there secure and putting all that. I do think that that's a good idea. I just wasn't sure if that's exactly what y'all were saying.
One of the big concerns that our employees up here have is safety and security. That, you know, the way it is right now, we don't have the safety and security in place to protect our employees. And that would give us more of a central access point for both buildings to where it can be more structured.
I think something to keep in mind too, though, is that administration building, maybe not the CIA part, but the administration building had renovations not that long ago. And so the schools and the community feel like it's their turn to have the money put into their buildings and their teachers and their kids to have the security rather than just the adults. I think that's where you're going to get some pushback on it, is that if you're trying to make everybody's office, and yeah, logistically, I think you've got to be in compliance, but they're going to feel like we just did this.
This green side over here on this building, those windows are the original windows that don't operate and function. They're from the 1950s. You know, I don't think that a whole lot has been done to this green side of the building. The other side got renovations. This side, I don't think got a whole lot of anything. And that's where we're talking about the renovation.
And
I still
I'm
think
with
you'll have
Julie.
pushback.
Yeah, I'm with Julie. I think that no matter what we do in that building, it's going to be seen by the public as helping administration more than it helps students. So we really got to think about doing that in conjunction with schools, so they see that things are going on together, not just all. It'll be perceived as administrative help, even though there's a lot else going on. The other question I have is, at some point when we start renovating that building, what's the city percentage of renovation per dollar, where we all of a sudden have to comply with all the new codes? Do we know that number?
You'll be at that mark.
So whatever we do now, everything in that building has to come up to code. And so again, I'm not sure if we piecemeal it, that we can avoid that consequence, because the city will look at it and say, well, we just put a plan in for 500 here and we didn't bring you up to code. Now you put 500 here. Now you've avoided what the intent is. But you know, we have to be careful that we start doing something over there. We may be forced to complete something because city code is going to say everything that building over, I don't know if it's 25% or 40% of the building space or building value, then we have to do the whole update to comply with current code.
I'm not sure when did y'all renovate your existing admin area? And
It was probably 5 or 8 years ago.
Originally, it was done in 1999, and the renovations that were done back from the 2013 hail claim were done in 2017. The only thing that was done, even though it was perceived that we remodeled everything, the only thing that changed here was the roof and new flooring, and they moved some toilet stalls around. But as far as the structure, the furniture, that all stayed the same.
Yeah, if I'm correct,
And it was insurance.
It was necessity to sit there and renovate this because the roof collapsed in and there was flooding everywhere. And back on the green part right now on that picture that he just had up there, you know, right now that building is empty because that roof has got to come completely off, and we moved everybody out of there so we don't have any damage to any equipment, and everything is out of that building right now. And that's why this is being, you know, proposed at this point in time.
But kids are out of their buildings too. I see your point, but they're going to come back and fight it just the same. And to Eileen's point, as a community member and a parent, perception is your reality. They're going to see that you put your time and money here, regardless if it was insurance. So I think you're still going to have the battle.
I mean, I don't see where we're not addressing schools. We're looking at re-roofing two of our 5 campuses and our CIA building, which basically has the worst roof on it.
But you're just talking about roofs. And I think that's where, if you get into the CIA renovation and you're talking about walls and doors and all that kind of thing, all those details, you have those same issues in the school buildings. And so parents are going to feel like, yeah, it's our fault that we waited this long to do all of these different things, but they're going to feel that, why are we doing this all for you guys when this is still falling behind?
I guess, as far as what our facilities needs are, I don't know what our campuses, what we need in our campuses that's falling. I guess that's what I'm looking at, is that as far as the upkeep of the buildings, what we need to address there.
Elaine, do you have any sort of report on, besides the roof, on things that we need to change?
We've got a lot of things that are, it comes down to wants and needs. We have a lot of wants. We do have some needs. The needs that I would say at the campus level, as far as you would say, is a renovation of some sort, would be the safety vestibules, to block those entryways going into the campuses. But, as far as classrooms and stuff like that, we've pretty much accommodated what we can accommodate there without building new buildings and stuff like that. And I totally get where you're coming from of the perception there. And that was one of my concerns about bringing this forward. And again, we can do that in stages too. Maybe we do some of it in-house and some of the things that happened when we did remodel it before. We've got, as Robert stated earlier, we've got some crazy wall configurations and lights and stuff. And some of those things we can fix in-house, but we do need to find a way, especially for our special ed folks that are, they're in that back corner, to move them to the front, to give those kids and those diags and stuff, the privacy in the areas, I think is really important. The ADA issue is a real concern to me now that I really see it, because right now, any entrance is, we're quote grandfathered in at this point. But if you look at any of the green area and even our building, the admin building, we've got access issues. I mean, so whether we address just the access issues, kind of the thought when we were talking about this is we're going to have this building ripped apart because of the roof being. So why not just reconfigure the walls while we're there? We've already got everybody out. We do that. I understand the public perception might be that they're getting this glorious new area, but we're really just talking about moving some walls and cutting a few extra doors and putting those, in other words, instead of having a square room with weird cuts in it to create 3 offices, make that square room with 3 straight walls so we have 3 offices. That's the kind of renovation we're talking about. We're not talking about adding break rooms and all kinds of stuff like that. We're just talking about reconfiguring the office space that's there to make it more conducive and really soundproofing. We've got, the walls that were there were not soundproof. So if you've got a parent and a diag, or Dr. Vu and a parent or something, there's really no privacy with that conversation. But again, we're presenting this as an option. This certainly is not anything we have to do. I think to get us back on track, the most important things for tonight for us is for you to give us direction. This is something for you to mill and think about, but give us direction on what you want us to do with the roofs, whether you want to move on with Arthur and permission to tear down that pre-K wing. And we can figure where the playground goes and what walls we rebuild, and figuring out the ADA on down the road. But that's the most important thing tonight, is direction on the roofs. Can we tear the pre-K down? And do you want to add Arthur in?
Well, just again, looking at the numbers, I don't know if this is time to talk about it. Arthur's roof, from what I saw, is about $643,000. Does that sound about right?
If we re-roof the whole, if we just decide to do everything, I think my breakdown, we did change up a little bit, and keep in mind, we just had this conversation within the last 2 weeks of getting
Right.
the assessment. If we do just basic repairs, we're looking at, I think it was right at $110,000. If we don't, but that leaves the other part of the building, quote, the newer part, that, you know, we'd have them just fix that stuff for the time being and buy ourselves, you know, maybe 5-8 years at most, but we would have to re-roof those areas there. The older part at Arthur is the biggest concern. That's where the majority of the leaks are. The newer section, the 2-story section, is not, it does have some leaks, but not like the older section.
And it looked like just.
So 110,000. 110,000 gets the basics and repair the old part fixed.
No, that,
and
I'm sorry, I said that backwards. If we spend like 110 there, we're just fixing stuff. We're not re-roofing anything. If we re-roof the areas that need to be re-roofed, I have it here. You know,
okay, I was like,
looking
wow,
at-
that's a good deal. Sign them up.
No, I'm sorry, I said that backwards. I'm glad you. But
Yes,
just to, I
today.
mean, just to slap a patch on it, we're looking at 110 over there. You know, and if we want, we can push Arthur down to maybe next month and let Billy look at it and give us better specs on it at this point, so we know what to expect. It's just, since we've had the COVID and everybody's been out, the buildings are empty. There's an opportunity here. I realize there's a huge dollar figure attached to it though. And I get that. So that's why we're here asking today to tell us how you want to handle it.
Well, again, just what we have in the reports, the estimated roof cost was 850,000 plus 42,000 to the engineers. So we're about 900,000 to do just on estimates. And then if you take Delaney and the CIA, those two together, without doing anything internal, is 2,000,001.
Mhm.
And if you do the CIA work you're proposing, is another 1.5 million internal.
Mhm.
I mean, we've just blown through $7 million.
I don't think it was that high.
2176 is Delaney and the CIA. Arthur would be another 9. And then if we do some of the stuff Chad's talking about on CIA internals, it adds up to 900,000 plus
Okay.
a little bit. I mean, we're at $5 to $6 million.
Yeah.
I thought that was
Does Jimmy have the money?
Oh, that's me. I keep looking for that magic money tree.
I thought the roofs were 3 million and the.
Yeah, that's what I
regulations
was,
were 1 million.
numbers
So
I
that's
was
4
off.
million, not 7 million. That's 4 million, I believe.
I thought we were around 3 million. And all,
Well,
but I don't
the
have
numbers,
in
the
front
numbers
of
you
me.
gave are 1,467 in the proposal and what we have in the book. And then there's 58,000 for the consultant. And then we had CIA roof design report. That one shows 591,000 plus 59,000. There's 6 for those two. That's 2,176 just on that. Then again, if we talk about doing something on Arthur, I mean, again, I'm just going with what we've been estimating.
Right.
It's not 100, so that's 3 million right there. And then you add internals on CIA at 1.5 million about. I mean, that's just a lot. I mean, that's a lot of money.
I agree.
The
Yes, it is. I mean, we're looking at right now, it's like, how much scope do you want to sit there and cover and address? And, you know, the roofs are what they are.
And I agree, Chad. I think the roofs are what's critical. Again, at this point in time, I mean, I understand that CIA building internals would be nice, but I have my concerns that we hear from Austin a different set of money. And, you know, if we take 24 million in reserve and we spend 5, and next year the state doesn't do its 40%. I mean, we could blow into another 3 or 4,000 just to stay where we are, 3 or 4 million. So we go down to 15 million in reserve, 18 million reserve. I mean, I mean, next year, the year after, it could be a problem in terms of funding. You know, again, these projects are things that we ought to have talked about in a bond, particularly maybe CIA is a bond issue with other things internal in the schools. I mean, I think that's probably something to be discussed. Public doesn't want to hear it, but I have a hard time dragging our reserve down.
And on the Arthur roof, the only reason it was brought in was the consultant said that the old part of Arthur didn't have much life expectancy left on the roof. And we had left out the new part of the roof completely, and we're only going to do repairs on that. So I believe that was where it took only half of Arthur being done this time.
And again, I'm like you, Chad. I think the roofs are critical things that need to be addressed. I think we have to address them. We have to be cognizant of the political ramifications where you start making changes that the public doesn't perceive as benefiting a majority of our students.
I agree. All we're doing is laying out options for you.
Yeah.
And the thing is we are looking at holistically what areas need to be improved, what we could do to improve them, and what are our options to do that. And like I said, or Ms. Utmo, she said it very succinctly. I couldn't get my mic unmiked a while ago, but our priorities right now are the roofs and making sure that we have sound structures there. Now, as far as the ADA compliance and all that, that can be kicked down the road. But the reality is, it is what it is. And that building hasn't had anything done to it. Maybe some paint put on it and some walls that were put up by our guys, but those windows are the original windows, and it's not the most, I guess, secure building, in the scheme of things. So we have some other things that we're addressing with technology. We're having other things that we're addressing with safety and security. And all these things cost money, but they are areas that as we brought to the needs assessment, what are the needs that we assess throughout the district, and the secure vegetables are another thing to look at. And that's one of the things that Robert will be looking at as well. So these are all options. They don't all have to be done right now. We're just laying it all out for you.
Maybe we could get a very basic of bringing those two buildings with ADA up to ADA without the other stuff. What would that look like? Would we be saving, would that, be, I know that's kind of piecing some, but what could we do to bring just bring us something that showed what that might be?
I believe
I do think we needed to be ADA. I think that's.
I think that's about 150,000 to address that in the middle, or to bring the two buildings to where they're compliant with ADA.
Well, that's a lot more doable than 1.5 million.
One of the other things I wanted to point out too, and again, it just talks to the use of that building, even though it does house our special eds, our diags, and of course our curriculum staff. It does also provide, you've been there, it provides the staff development room needs some TLC. It can serve as a secondary boardroom. We have tons of training that happens there and a lot of meeting spaces there other than just the CIA staff. Teachers come in all the time. I pull my staff in there and use that as an office, as a meeting area. Child nutrition does too. So I guess my point to that is it's not just to pretty it up for the CIA staff. It's something that needs to be done for the district. I understand that maybe now is not the time to do it, and we put that on a back burner, but I also want to put that in the back of your mind that it serves a bigger purpose than just to pretty up offices for the CIA staff.
And I agree with you. I think my wife tells me about going over for training. We've been in the room. It does need improvement, but I'm just saying that until we have schoolscapes and schools that the public feels are, safe, secure, sound, you know, and you know, what you're asking tonight is a big departure because Dr. Vu is very excited about making our, you know, our pre-K program something unique and going back into the campuses. If we can maintain that uniqueness and the goals that she wanted, great. I mean, I thought she just envisioned it as an early learning center with a lot of options. And I hope we can achieve that if we're going back into the, you know, in each school or one school, and maybe we're realigning grades to do all this. Maybe that's where we are again.
I think we're going to have to look at some of that. Yes.
How soon would don't we need some type of pre-K by next year or the year after?
Dr. Vu, are you in here somewhere?
2023.
Yeah, Dr. Vu.
Yes, we do. We submitted the waiver, but we have 2 additional years to get full day pre-K up and running. So we definitely need some space somewhere. Yeah.
And always
2023 is the date. Yeah.
And we're saying that we've got enough existing space to put the pre-K into the elementary schools that we have now. Is that correct?
Now, how that looks, we're going to have some serious conversations about, but yes.
Okay.
And again, you know, do we lose what Dr. Vu wanted? I mean, she wants to have a pre-K that's engaging, that's you know, something that
2.5 million to build a structure, something like that. Is that what, you know, we want to do? I mean, you know.
I agree. I agree. But one of the options is we talk about dollars. We also have to talk about, you know, its function and its goal. I mean, we can have 4 walls and metal chairs, and that's a classroom, but does it engage that pre-K level at the point that needs to be? And you know, I'm relying on Dr. Vu and her and our administrators to come up with what's the best educational model and modeling the space for that. You know, if it means renovating in the campuses, we're still renovating, right?
Yes.
Well, you've got to think about PE, lunch, music, library, art. I mean, you've got all of that stuff goes in there too.
Kids drop off also.
All those extra people.
If you build a structure, then
by
you
having
have to
something
accommodate
separate
all of that as well. So,
Right.
and you know, the space.
And you've got to have a bond issue, and you've got to find out if your community even wants that. I mean, your community at this point might just want 4 walls, and that people are putting their own needs aside based off the economy and how things are going. They might not feel like a big pre-K center is in our future over the next year. So it's just, some community input would be very helpful for that pre-K.
And that was where I said it's going to take lots of discussion to answer Mr. Bisco's. Those are conversations, and those are going to be lots of meetings that we're going to have with community to find out. Like you said, we know we have roof issues. You know, we were just sitting there laying out options while the building was empty. We're laying out other options of what we can do with that building to make it a better structure. The pre-K wing, I think, is a complete loss and needs to go. I believe we need to handle the roofs and take care of the roofs. I know that looking at the roofs, it's 3 million, but I believe that previously 2.5 million was set aside. So we're looking at 500,000 in addition to that to handle the 3 roofs at the 3 buildings. Okay, sorry.
Additional funding. I mean, if we spend $3 million on the roof, I think that's a good point to take to our lawsuit that, hey, we spent $3 million to bring this back to where it's better than it was. So, I mean, I think it gives us a leg up in our legal part that we have spent this money. Now, you know, judge, this is what we spent. This is what we think you ought to rule in our favor for. So that would be paid for.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's a lawsuit, remember? It's a lawsuit, remember? And so, and I think we got to be careful about talking about those legal issues. You know, we got to be very careful about what we discuss here on that. I mean, I agree. I mean, you know, if we had the insurance money, we would not be having as much of the argument about it. That's our problem.
Well, the question before us is whether or not to add Arthur to the scope of the roofing projects. And then the second question is about demoing the existing PK wing, right? I mean, that's the two questions right before us right now.
Yes.
And I definitely think that demoing the PK wing and adding just for traffic flow alone and aesthetics of that space is going to be a big advantage for Delaney. I mean, it's going to be a renovation for that campus. So, you know, I think those two things we probably can get some agreement on. Do we have some agreement on those 2 points?
I agree with you, John.
The
Yeah,
tearing down that pre-K building has to be a phone call before we move forward on that. Am I wrong? Our lawyers were supposed to call about
Yeah.
before we did that.
No, I think we're supposed to inform the lawyers a month, give them a month before we.
So that they can contact.
Call, contact and make sure that they don't want to come take more pictures or anything else, which we go to trial July 20th, I believe is our trial date. That's been
Maybe.
Well,
I haven't.
It's supposed to be March 24th.
so we can make a motion to do the pre-K and then you can call the lawyers if we all agree.
I think just opening up that space alone will do a lot for that area. And, you know, and I'm excited about giving them a nice playground area and doing something with those drainage grates that stink. And, you know, it's just an awkwardly positioned traffic pattern. And, you know, like you say, blowing your tires out on the cones in the middle. But anyway, you know, I think we have some agreement there. I also I do agree with Julie and John and their concerns. I think that, I can't help it that old wing of the Arthur, since now we're talking about that, the old building, the original tilt wall building, the interior of that thing is scary. I mean, the hallways are barely 4 feet wide. Now that they moved the lockers out there, and it's that thing just glares at me every time I go up in that wing. Of course, it's exacerbated by the cracks in the walls where the rain comes in. But
and the smell.
Yeah, exactly. The smell that comes out of the commodes and you know, I would love to see us look at some renovations in that wing as well. But I also agree that for, you know, when we did the roof on the admin building and put the flooring and whatnot, and we tried to make a nicer foyer area to make that as a central point of access for our public. And you know, I'm not sure we accomplished that when we did that. It's better than it was, but I'm not sure we accomplished that. And the thing with the roofs and painting and moving walls and ADA is once you touch something in construction, now you have to be compliant. That's what we will no longer be grandfathered, is my understanding of the.
That's correct.
as far as being grandfathered, I don't know that necessarily. Robert, can you speak to that as far as the grandfathered?
Yeah, school districts, churches, and a few other specialized entities were given a reprieve, if you will, to become compliant at some point. And again, all it really takes is a complaint or an issue. But the truth is, everything needed to be brought up to speed. And I guess it was 1991. So because it was an unfunded mandate, and because you take districts like Houston or Dallas or Fort Worth, you're talking tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars to bring 60, 70, 80, 90-year-old buildings up to snuff. So it's going to happen at some point. It's just like in a building, as soon as you move a wall, you have to bring the entire campus up to current TEA or administrative code guidelines. It's the same thing with the buildings now. And what's interesting about that is that the energy code will kick in before some of the building codes do. The energy code in a lot of ways has a higher precedence. And so when you talk about your building envelope and things like that, it's getting expensive.
I agree, and thank you. So
gonna-
back to my original point is that we just need to look at adding Arthur to the scope of the roofs and then the demo, and I think we have agreement, consensus on those 2 points, don't we?
Okay, I'm gonna throw another wrench. You know, if you're concerned with the old part of Arthur, and we really have no idea what it would take to renovate that area and bring it up to what it needs to be. If that's the case, do you want to spend money to sit there and put a new roof on it?
Well,
You know,
I don't think we can demo that. So, you know, I think we have to get the rainwater to keep from going, because it does leak. And, you know, I know that they had problems with water on that campus. And so I think we need to take care of those issues. But, you know, my feelings is, you know, we do these 2 things. We add that roofing at Arthur, and then we go ahead and demo that PK, because I do think that's just a lost cause. That's throwing good money after bad to try and bring that thing back to life. That's going to do great things for Delaney's aesthetics. And then I still want to dream big on this PK center. I hate to admit that, you know, knowing the dollars involved, but that's what I'd like to do at some point in time. But if we have to go into other campuses until we can dream big, okay, let's do that until we.
all right. So any further discussion, or y'all ready to move on? With it?
So the Arthur, it's 900,000 just to fix the problems that Billy showed us.
Billy, you might want to hop in here. I think the 900,000 is to completely re-roof everything over there. That's not.
It's without that, which I call Area D, which is the newer section. But my numbers are normally a little higher because I don't want you to have a shock or some sort whenever a contractor gives you a price and it's less. So my numbers are a little bit higher. I'm pretty sure they are. But that was just for all of the areas without Area D, I believe, which I call the newer area. I don't know what wing y'all call that.
That's the 2-story. That's the newer building, the newer addition.
Without that area, yes.
That's the 2-story. Yeah, we don't have 2-story buildings in Kennedale.
Yeah. Okay. But basically that's pretty much an estimate, because I ran a little high because I haven't cut that roof. I just based it off of square footage. So hopefully that number will be a little less once I cut it and see what's on there.
But when we vote on it, we're voting up to the 900, right?
Yes.
We're not doing bids.
The motion does not have any dollar amount.
Yeah,
to
we're
it.
not doing bids.
No, without being, this is just whether or not you want to actually
Move forward.
repair it.
Yeah, it's just the scope of what you want repaired, you know, if you want to expand it, because originally the discussion did not include Arthur. It was just the CIA and Delaney. And that's what we said we were going to go through, and with the procurement and all of that on. Now we're looking at possibly adding Delaney or to Arthur to that scope as well. And that's what you're looking at.
Okay. And then the budget amendment later.
Yeah,
Does
when
the-
the bids come in, yes.
Does the motion need to include the demolition of CIA, of the pre-K? Because the motion we have only deals with the roof project and adding, do we need to
I
put that in?
think
You got two
I think the
different.
next one is to take it out.
You
There's
basically
two
discussed
different
agenda
ones.
items at
Okay.
once.
Do
But
D and E, okay.
one would be, you know,
So are we ready to act on it? Is that what y'all's asking?
Yeah, let's start with D, I guess, which is the scope of the roof projects. Yeah, are we ready to make a motion on that one?
I'll make
I'll
a
make
motion.
a motion.
Go ahead, Leslie.
Everybody's done.
Okay. To add James Arthur Intermediate to the scope of roof projects to be completed in the district.
Second,
I have a motion and a second. I'll just, John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
Wait,
And
I
I
didn't
vote-
hear Strange.
He said yes. We're all
Okay.
yeses. It's unanimous.
Everybody? Okay.
Okay, now let's go down
My internet
to
was going out.
item E, which is discuss and consider options for pre-K wing. I think the motion before us is just to remove and demo the PK wing. Is that correct?
Yes.
Do I have a motion on this issue?
I make a motion to approve the removal and demolition of the pre-K wing due to the extensive repairs and costs necessary to bring the building and classrooms up to code.
I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
I have a motion in 2 seconds. Okay. Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
And I vote yes as well. It's unanimous.
Okay.
We've done 2 motions out of 13 pages. Yay.
You got a lot of information before you, so. All right.
Well, Bobby and Robert, I appreciate y'all attending our little Zoom meeting. Y'all don't have to hang around if you don't want to. Obviously, you can log out and go
Go to
have
bed.
a better time tonight.
I think we have a safety meeting scheduled, so.
Oh, gosh.
We'll try to get some more information, guys. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Can we now move to the instructional materials allotment certification and B and C?
I don't see why not. Let's consider instructional materials allotment and TEACS certification for 2021.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to get to that, back to that.
That's item B, right?
Yes.
Yes.
But every year we have to approve you have to approve the instructional materials allotment and TEACS certification that basically we are 100% TEACS compliant in some form or fashion. So I'll let Dr. Vu and Mrs. Dickey speak to this.
Hello, you have the allotment and TEACS certification document in your packet. And this basically says, as Mr. G noted, that we are serving our students and we have the materials to cover 100% of the standards. Would you like me to go ahead and move on to the adoption piece or stop here?
I think we can move on.
All right. So I am going to be fast and I will go through this process and then I'm happy to take any questions. I'm going to share my screen with you now. This is a presentation here that you have in front of you. So Proclamation 2020 Instructional Materials Adoption. We formed an adoption committee that included a KHS administrator, the ELAR, general education teachers, 3 of those teachers. We had a special education representative, an ELL representative, and a district specialist. And all of these professionals came together to make a decision about our 9 through 12 ELAR adoption. We started in October by providing a brief training with to provide an overview of the new ELAR standards. And I actually delivered that training to our junior high and high school teachers. Beginning in December, we had applications for the adoption committee. That committee was led by Ms. Danelle Dickey. She is our special program specialist. She led this committee in selecting the members, developing a rubric. They attended the Region 11 vendor fairs. They could review all of the materials that are available for adoption. They reviewed sample materials. And in March, they actually made their materials available for public review and comment at the KHS open house, which was really great to get some feedback from parents and community members. And here we are now. I'm presenting this information to you. So the rubric was based upon the rubric that was shared via TEA. We evaluated the following components. The committee reviewed these publishers, and eventually they narrowed it down to 2. And here's how those particular resources scored based on the rubric that was developed by the committee. The teachers, they spent a lot of time on this adoption, and I am so proud of the work that they did. They are so passionate about serving kids, and they identified some very unique benefits for this particular resource. This particular resource offers the ability to set student accommodations required for several of our special programs and students in our special populations. Rather than being linked to an outside site like YouTube, all of the videos and the text, it's included in the publisher site, which is nice because we won't have to deal with some of the advertisements and some of the blocked sites that come as a result of sending our students away from the site. And then it also allows them to track data by student and by standard, which is really nice. In addition to this teacher benefits, they identified several benefits to the students, including an online library with 12 new titles, 10 in English and 2 in Spanish, added every month, and daily blasts with current events, providing students with the opportunity for response. The committee also made a recommendation for consumable student materials. So they selected the digital option with also the opportunity for the students to have a consumable edition that we receive 1 per student per year for the life of the adoption, which is really nice. And even considering our current circumstances would allow us to have these paper-based options for our students, as well as the online access. The adoption committee recommended McGraw-Hill Study Sync of all of the resources that they reviewed. And then I have included these additional questions here at the end. I'd be happy to address any of them, but I provided them here for your review. In terms of the translation options, the translation option for assignment, instructions, and deliverables, we reached out to the publisher to get these responses for you based on the questions that you shared with us before the meeting. We do provide scaffolds to support our EL students, and then McGraw-Hill provides audio summaries for text in 11 different languages. And then there's some pieces here about some additional supports for EL students. In terms of the adaptive software and whether or not it will allow us to provide feedback, this particular resource does integrate with Google Classrooms and Google Docs. So teachers are able to provide feedback there. I addressed this about the consumables and students will be able to receive the consumables student edition. And then in regards to software and future purchases, our team is in the process of evaluating the resources that the teachers and students are currently using and finding the correlation between student usage and academic performance data for our students. We want to make data-driven decisions based on what is going to enhance learning and support student achievement. And so that's something that we are looking at as well. So that's all I have for you today. The main point area of focus is this piece here that the adoption committee recommends McGraw-Study Hill for adoption for Proclamation 2020. So I'm here and I will take any questions that you have.
Thank you, Dr. Roof, for doing that. I think a lot of those questions are mine. I appreciate you kind of laying that out for us. Just one thing I think for the board to consider why I asked a few of those questions. One of them was about the software license. So right now we have a lot of teachers that are using great adaptive software that they love using, but it's all free right now because of the COVID situation. As we know, that's not going to continue once we get to the fall. So I don't know where this falls as far as like a budget item or whatever as we get into the summer, but something to consider that we're going to have teachers that are really starting to create these powerful lessons using immediate feedback and adaptive software. And then all of a sudden we're going to get to the fall and now everything costs money.
Yeah, I would say that that particular decision doesn't fall under the Proclamation 2020 for our core resources, but it absolutely is something that we are thinking about and have been thinking about all year. And so this extended closure, with all of its drawbacks and challenges, it's also presented a great opportunity for us to just rethink instruction and rethink the ways that we can use technology to support learning in ways that we haven't considered before. So to answer your question, short answer is yes, absolutely. Yes, we have thought about it. Yes, we have talked about it. And yes, we are in the process of reviewing data. We have no decisions made at this time, but that would come from that would be something supplemental that, you know, we might use a different set of funds, but it wouldn't come out of our instructional materials allotment. However, in terms of assistive technologies and adaptive software, this particular resource does include both of those, and the teachers don't have access to it right at this moment.
Right. And then also the other question I asked about the reproducible. So, you know, we have no guarantee that next November, December, or January, we're not going to be right back in this situation again. So I think it's great that McGraw-Hill has reproducibles for every student every year in the adoption. So if and when this does happen again, kids can just grab their own textbook that they've been using all year and take it straight home. And then we know next year that'll be a whole different textbook for the new kid. So I think that's a great option. I wish that was something that maybe we had done in years past, but you know, we can only change what we see in front of us. And so I think this is a good pivot on y'all's end. So thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Anybody else? Okay, that's all I have for you.
All right. Once again, we have 2 items that need a motion. Let's start with the TEKS.
I make a motion to approve the instructional materials allotment and TEKS certification for 2020, 2021.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes, and I'm trying to find, hold on. What letter is it?
That's B.
B.
Okay, got it. B. We've gone all around. Okay, Sean, is he who made that motion?
John.
John did.
John Clark?
Yes.
Okay, and the second was?
Sean.
Sean, okay, sorry.
And so that would
My
bring
printer printed it on front and back, so it's crazy.
are you in favor of that motion, Leslie?
I am, yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Sean?
Yes.
I am as well. It passes unanimously. Now we need a motion and a second on the instructional materials.
I'll make a motion to approve the materials recommendation for the use of McGraw-Hill Study Sync materials for English language arts and reading as presented to the board.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. It's unanimous.
Okay, John, can we now go to F?
Leslie, we are on item F, which is the vendor E-rate.
Got it. I should have numbered these before we started. That would have helped me.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Trying to facilitate our speaker.
So Brian is our speaker.
Brian will be discussing our E-rate, approval of E-rate vendor.
Hello. So, yeah, we last fall went to bid for Category 2 E-rate funding. So we're looking at replacing the cabling in our campuses is really what this project involves. We also, we went to bid for it. We had 3 responses, and this is really me rating these bids that came in, and this is about selecting a contractor to work with. It's contingent upon receiving E-rate funding from USAC. So if we don't get that, we don't have to move forward, and we probably would not move forward with it. And of course, it's contingent upon your approval of the final pricing when we see. Really, it's going to be about adjusting the scope. I already know there's several things that have the circumstances just changed since we initially went out for bid, and there's just some adjustments we have to make. So this is about selecting that vendor. The criteria was based on a grading sheet that was provided by our E-rate consultant, and it's standard. Purchase price there's a lot of points awarded for that. Then there's a few other ones, and I'll just hit the ones that were most important to me. Reputation of the proposer's goods and services, and reputation of the proposer, the extent to which, the proposer's past relationship with the district, the service and support proximity to our school district, how close are they? And I chose CDWG because their subcontractor is going to be Southwest Cabling. I believe CDWG did the original networking project for Kennedale ISD, so there's a long-standing relationship there. I have personally worked with them at Region 10 at Southwest Cabling. They have a giant facility in Grand Prairie and an enormous number of DFW school district clients that are current. So I absolutely believe that that combination of vendors, along with their proposal, it provides the best value to us in terms of what we would be getting and support and their ability to deliver on what they say. So that's it. We're basically at this point, we've got a contingency agreement that just says we will use CDWG if we get E-rate funding, and assuming you guys would approve the actual spending amount when we get that. Are there any questions?
How did the amount that was included herein compare with what you initially thought?
Well, so it's going to be adjusted to our E-rate budget for the year. I'll just tell you, in summary, is closer to 600,000, and that's how we're going to scale back. And I've already seen that paperwork, how that's going to scale back, and it's going to work. It's going to be around 590 something thousand. Our E-rate funding, we're a 60% district, so E-rate should reimburse us for 60% of that, and we'll pay 40%. So we'll be in that $230,000, $240,000 mark, somewhere up in there when it's all said and done.
Okay.
Anybody else? Great, thank you, Brian. I'll stand for a motion.
I make a motion to approve the CDW government as the selected vendor for the services specified in the presented agreement.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael, how do you vote?
Yep. Another piece
Yes.
of paper.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. There you go, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
And can we go ahead and knock G out of the way? Knock me out too.
Yes, we need a motion in a second for this one as well.
I make a motion to approve the district goals developed in the work session prior to the regular meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. John, how do you vote?
Yes.
Michael, how do you vote?
Yes.
Julie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Leslie, how do you vote?
Yes.
Andrew, how do you vote?
Yes.
Sean, how do you vote?
Yes.
I vote yes as well. It's unanimous.
Okay. Now we're back up to A. And on this one, does anybody feel the need to go into closed session as far as personnel matters?
I don't have any concerns.
I have a question. I'm trying to find A. Sorry. Does this also include the term contracts?
Yes.
Yes, I would like to go into closed session.
Okay.
Okay, Leslie, I have 9:42.
I have one suggestion, if we could, just because we're streaming on YouTube, if we go into closed session at this point, if there's any other things that you need to vote on or anything else, it might be beneficial for us to do closed session at the very end of this, just so people who are watching online, they won't have to come back on later to see it. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So do we want to do, what else was left on the agenda? Was it Mr. G's?
Just talking about the Chromebooks and where we are with our Chromebooks. So if we want to go ahead and do that with the superintendent's report. Really, we don't have any campus reports. We knew this was going to be a long meeting and there are not a whole lot going on at the campuses right now. We just included the Chromebooks under, it's already been a budget item. So we were really just looking at, I was going to let Brian discuss that with you as far as where we are with our needs for this year.
Yeah, in terms of the Chromebooks, this is really our regular rotation, which we base that on the sixth graders, the current enrollment for sixth graders and eighth graders, because we inject it at seventh and ninth grade. And then we give ourselves a little bit of room based off of historical additional enrollments, and we've been getting that pretty close. So as far as, and that's really it for this. Mr. Strange, I think you had some questions about next year's or like responding to the COVID-19 things, and we'd sent an email out earlier on that. But basically, to support additional devices, we have a pool of devices still at our elementary schools, and they're the older devices, and devices that we're rotating out this year. We're not recycling or anything. We're keeping those to kind of prepare for, if we need to provide loaners or whatever we need to do. So that's kind of where our pool of those are going to come from. And we just don't see a need to buy a lot of new devices to support that.
Thank you. And then I also mentioned just now that our students are keeping these Chromebooks at home over the summer.
Yeah, over the summer.
Does that, our insurance policy on lost and damaged stuff, does that get affected at all?
Well, so our insurance, if they're new devices, we work with Dell. That's part of the new devices that we purchase to cover accidental things. And in terms of like insurance to cover lost or stolen devices, it's not going to be anything different from what we have, which we don't really carry that. It would have to go through whatever our regular property insurance would be if we had a significant amount of those. I think we're already in that boat. We've just handed out devices to elementary kids who normally don't get them at all. Arthur kids have come and picked them up, and they've had them since March. And we're looking at very minimum having them in May. So we're talking about adding 8 more weeks to that. And so we're not really, and it's just my opinion, I don't see us having an additional risk there. There's also a lot of really, even outside of this, there's some potential benefits to having the kids keep them over the summer at the one-to-one campuses, even moving forward, that we'd started to explore last year. I never picked up on it, but there's things like the the sense of ownership of it. And even if they use them for personal reasons, that kind of reinforces a sense of ownership of the device. And if anything, helps the kids take care of it more. I think the most dangerous place for a Chromebook is in hallways and cafeterias and gyms on campus when, you know, there's everyone's around and they're Chromebook checking each other and things like that. So, but this summer is a little bit different. There's the additional risk of bringing everyone together to take in all of the Chromebooks. We had a big advantage over spring break as our high school and junior high kids, a lot of them already had their devices at home with them. So because they were one-to-one. And with that being said, to take all of those devices in, there's going to be over 2,000 devices that we would need to coordinate bringing in. And that's a big risk. There's the logistics that come with that as well in terms of handling those devices, storing them, because we try to reassign that same Chromebook to the kid each year. So then once they come back, we would go through that reassignment process again. And we don't know what the social distancing requirements are going to be and what our new normal is going to be. And I think it's safer from a safety standpoint, that's another reason we came to the conclusion of keeping them over the summer. Then there's going to be summer online learning activities that I think we're still working on, but that's certainly going to be there. So
what is there an option for parents if parents don't want to be responsible for that Chromebook over the summer to turn it in?
Well, right now, I'll address that one. Right now, we have no plans to take them up. And I think I put that in the email that I responded to you earlier. Right now, there are no plans to sit there and take them up because we feel like there's going to be a big demand for students to sit there and have some sort of summer remediation to try to fill in some of the gaps with their learning. And we've already went through trying to get Chromebooks passed out to students so that we could sit there and ensure that we had online learning. And to take those up to sit there and worry about trying to pass them back out in the summer to students that need them doesn't make a whole lot of sense to us right now. So, you know, one is safety and security for our staff, but also to ensure that our students have what they need over the summer for the summer slide and summer remediation to remediation and, you know, interventions that they may need, because that's a big concern with everybody, is that our students are going to come back and they're not going to be prepared for next school year. Well, if they have their Chromebooks over the summer, they have opportunities to have resources to work on those things.
Is there an expectation that kids are going to have to do assignments over the summer?
As far as summer school, we're working under the premise that summer school will be online.
But students that are not in summer school, you were saying that you're providing.
Right now, we don't know who's not going to be in summer school. That's yet to be determined. So right now, it's more beneficial for them to keep them. And if parents are worried about their students having summer slide, then having their Chromebook and being able to work on some of these programs that we've been talking about, I believe that would be more beneficial than us taking them up and then trying to pass them back out to people over the summer. The other reality is we're assuming that we're going to be back in school at the start of school next year. But we really don't have answers to that right now. And, you know, if we aren't back in school, so if we take them up, then we're going to be in a situation where we're trying to pass them back out under circumstances that we don't know what we're trying to pass them back out under. And we're right back where we started from before. Actually, we were in better shape than most districts. If we take them all up, that could create a bigger headache for us.
Yeah. I mean, I'm totally, like, if parents want to keep it and kids use it, I think that'd be great. I just know that these devices aren't actually the parent's property. It's the school property. So if a parent says, I don't want to be responsible. I mean, look, I've got a 9-year-old son. He can't keep track of his, you know, toy car, much less a device when he's not using it. So I just wonder if there's an option for parents.
Michael, I've got a 26-year-old who can't keep track of his.
I'm just saying, technically it's not their property, it's the school property. And so if they're like, look, I don't want to be in charge of this, you know, I know that their athletics teams and stuff are dropping off their athletics clothes and stuff. So, you know, which I get, like, they don't want to be in charge of that stuff and be responsible for it over the summer. I just wonder if there's an option for the parents that want to, after, you know, they know that there's summer school, there's not summer school.
I think that could be addressed further down the road, but right now we're not looking at that. But, you know, further as we get into further in the summer, you know, or, you know, past some of this stuff and we have better answers, then we may be looking at doing that. But as of right now, I would say no. And then, do you have any other Chromebook?
So your concern was exposure, one, Michael, and then the parents who just didn't want to keep it and wanted to bring it back, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, like the kids, I think, are somewhat responsible with them now because they're using them every day. But when we get to the summer, they're not, you know, I mean, more than likely, they're not going to be using that Chromebook. And now who knows where it goes. And I know as a parent, if, I mean, Aiden doesn't have one, but if he had one, I'd be like, look, I don't want this. Like, let's give it back before we lose it, or it ends up under a bed or outside, heaven forbid, you know, and it gets damaged. Now I'm responsible for $300. Maybe that's not an issue, but I just wonder if there's at least an option for the parents that do want to return it. You know, because technically it's not their property, it's the schools.
And then if they do trash it. So Brian, you don't think that it's a risk or you think we would be covered if a Chromebook did get destroyed?
Well, as far as if it gets destroyed, if it's a newer, it depends on the model. If it's a newer one, we are covered for accidental damage from our perspective. We would obviously, you know, Mr. Strange is correct. It's ultimately the parent and student's responsibility. We would absolutely hold them accountable for that. This year we've put together My School Bucks, so we would try that route. But even if we don't get anything, we can still go the Dell warranty route. If it's an older one, it would just be, we would take it and use the spare parts out of it for repairing others from that pool, is what we've been doing with those. Just another note, if it's in terms of Chromebooks that don't come back, if they're lost or if they're stolen, we can also render a Chromebook useless. We can turn it off. We go through, GoGuardian gives us an option as well to track a device. If it's stolen, we try to actually not deactivate them so that there's an opportunity for someone to try to use it, and then it pops up, and it's kind of like a Find My iPhone kind of thing. And we've actually contacted in the past, you know, worked with Kennedale Police to recover some of those that have done that.
You also have the conversations that you've had with your colleagues in other districts that have not taken them up, that, you know.
That's absolutely true. This is not unprecedented. There's you know, unfortunately, there's not a big spreadsheet of data out there that shows who wants to keep them and who, but and damage rates and things like that. But every technology director that I've spoken with, so there's local. I know there's gosh, I'm trying to think of the district name. It's not Little Elm. It's Crum ISD has done this. Them, and you know, last year I was at Dell, and it was a nationwide survey of technology directors and people who were gathered there, and the ones who have made this move, they have the exact same questions. We're going to lose them. They're going to get trashed. And they say once they actually made that jump, this was the best thing they ever made. It was the best move they ever made. Let them do it. It's worked out great. So that's just word. That's I don't, like I say, I don't have any data to go with that. That's just what I've heard. And I get it. There's a couple of web good, interesting links that I posted up that kind of are along those lines. I think what's driving the decision this particular summer is our circumstances, for sure. And it's measuring those risks and rewards of bringing everyone in, or, you know, providing an option. I think for students who are leaving the district, we definitely want to get those back. And if they're not coming back next year, it's the same as what we have today of kids who are leaving. They're making arrangements through the campus and following current safety protocols and dropping those off with their other equipment. We're just trying to avoid a mass intake of devices, particularly not knowing what our situation is going to be like in the fall and over the summer, for that matter. We just don't know yet, and we want to be prepared. We don't want to take up a bunch of Chromebooks and then have to turn around and redistribute them again.
Yeah, and like Mr. G said, I have no issues tabling this for May because obviously
Yeah.
we still have the month, but
yeah, we just don't know yet on that.
Yeah, I definitely see holding the kids or parents responsible for a Chromebook during the school year, but to say that they're gonna have to be responsible for paying for it during the summer, it's not during the school year. So I think we get ourselves in a little bit of a quandary. So, if at least having that option for parents to say, look, I don't want to be responsible for it, I think would be good. But like I said, we can talk about that next month.
Okay. But yeah, for what's on the agenda right now is just it's our regular Chromebook rotation devices, accounting for the enrollments that we have for next year.
Thank you, Brian.
And that's just information, so we don't need to do anything on.
Any other discussion on Chromebooks? Okay, then I'll give you kind of an update. We are, Mr. Cagle has been working with our vendors that have the dates set for us, the venues for graduation. We're trying very hard to keep those venues intact so that we can possibly have a in-person graduation in some form or fashion. We have dates set for June and for July. May is, out the door. So now we're moving to June and July. I've also been in contact with Mansfield, possibly using their big, large PAC center, which holds more people than ours does. What that's going to look like is still being determined by the commissioner. The governor kind of left it in the commissioner's ball and the ball court. And so the commissioner is forming a task force of superintendents throughout the state to look at what in-person graduations look like. A lot of districts are already making plans for that. My hopes and goals would be to sit there and to have some form of graduation before our seniors get out of here. And then prom, we're trying to do the same thing with prom, but prom may be, so far pushed back so far that it may be a moot point. Okay. And then as far as other campuses, some of the questions that came up from Mr. Strange was, what about other activities on other campuses? I know that we have some activities that are kind of a rite of passage. They're looking into that. The campus principals are looking into those and trying to find ways to try to keep those intact. But until we get more word on this social distancing, and like I said, that won't come out until May 18th, what that's going to look like, we're going to be very conservative in what we're doing. So, we had a meeting this morning, and there are 3 things we're looking at. Our priorities, when this first came out, our priorities were pay our employees, feed our children, make sure that we have sustainable online curriculum to continue educational services for students, and the safety and security of our staff and students. And I feel like we've accomplished all 4 of those things. And now we're shifting into finishing out this year, preparing for next year, and then preparing for the uncertainties and all the unanswered things that we have no answers for yet. And that could be popping up that we have no idea that are out there. The reality that we may not start school back up under this what we're used to. The fact that we may be looking at some sort of online version all the way through the school year. There's lots of other talks of how school may look next year that's completely different than what we're used to. So these are all things that we're starting to try to prepare for. We have moved to a lot of automating a lot of our systems and moving online. Our contracts will all be done online, signed through DocuSign instead of having to deal with mailing and people returning contracts in person. We've implemented a lot of systems to sit there and try to implement more automated systems so that it's easier on our staff to sit there and be able to facilitate these things from different working environments. So that's kind of my report where we are. If you have questions, I'll be happy to answer. Yeah.
You mentioned May 18th. One of the questions I had was when teachers will be able to return to their classroom to gather personal items or things that they just need for the summer to plan for.
That'll be determined more as we get closer to May 18th. But right now, the plan is any teachers that are leaving us, they will be returning their stuff and cleaning out their classrooms the week after the what was our April break that's now moved to the May break. So what week is that? The 26th, I believe, is the last week of May after Memorial Day. That week will be designated for staff that are not returning to us. Other staff will be further into the summertime to sit there and facilitate them. I really don't, if they're staying in their classrooms, I don't know what they would have to go pick up. So we had that conversation with our principals this morning, you know, of finding out what teachers really need to do in their classrooms. So.
Yeah, because you know, I know that was it yesterday, Governor Abbott talked about teachers being able to return to their classrooms. And I'm sure
if needed to be, but right now we don't have a need for them to return to their classrooms.
And then same question for students. You know, who knows what things are in those lockers for the last few months. So students being able to get their things out of their lockers and whatnot. Is there any way to or plan for that to happen before we get into the summer?
I don't see it happening before May 18th. So as we get more restrictions, but you know, unless y'all tell me differently, we're going to play it very, very safe. You know, I don't believe that we're in a situation to where we just open up the doors and let everybody come in, you know, and here we go back into the same situation. You know, we need to sit there and be very smart. Just because, you know, businesses and stuff are opening up, I see that. But for us to sit there and say, we're just going to let everybody come into the buildings and, you know, pick up stuff, I don't think that's a good, smart plan. I think we have to be very cautious about what we're doing and very strategic in how we do it.
Yeah, and I'm definitely not saying open up the doors and let everybody in, but as you said, I think we could be smart or strategic about how we get things to students, whether, I mean, I don't know, whether you take a locker and put stuff in a trash bag or in a bag and, you know, just like you did for the drop off stuff for Chromebooks, you know, they do it outside, whatever, or let teachers in a few at a time. So anyways, I just know that there's a lot of concerned kids and teachers that are like, look, this stuff's been in here for months now. And as you said, if we go into the fall and we're still in this situation, you know, it could be a lot longer. So just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that opportunity.
We have offered, if parents have medications that they brought up, we have offered to have our nurses come up and reissue those medications back to the families. I don't know of anything in the lockers that is crucial, or in classrooms. We've had teachers come up and get what they needed for instruction. I don't know what the purpose of letting them into their classrooms other than just in their classrooms serves at this point in time. So now the ones that are leaving, they're going to have to clean up their classrooms, and we have some work that needs to be done in buildings that we're going to have teachers come clean up some things. So we're already working, getting that's our first priority. Our next priority is the staff that's leaving. And then from there, we'll start working it down to everyone else.
Thank you.
Yeah, Austin and up in Euless, they came in and just garbage bags the athletics, at least. So I don't know, maybe if athletics may have already done something like that. I don't know.
We have already done that with athletics, and like I said, we are working through the next plan. A lot of that is being coordinated through Mr. Hogan, our Director of Safety and Security, to make sure that it is staged and that it is safe.
Copy that. All right, can we go into closed session now? John says yes. All right, it's 10:05. Leslie, let's go into closed session.
Okay, give me just a moment. I will stop the YouTube stream, and I guess everyone who's not part of the closed session can drop out, and